12 o'clock on your Tuesday afternoon. Had to remember what day it was there for a second. It is Tuesday. Welcome into the halftime show. Tyler Head, along with you solo for now, as I just made my way back in from Firehouse Subs out there at Killian Crossing. Appreciate everybody out there for allowing us to be there. As always, our guy Larry Chandler for allowing us to go to his restaurant. Always a very cool experience. And Terry Ford was out there with us, so he'll be back down here in a little bit, as we got plenty to talk about, as we did so much during the first 3 hours earlier on this morning. Just kind of really putting a bow on the spring game and talking about what we saw there and how we're feeling coming away from it. Because, again, that's the biggest thing when it comes to spring football and when it comes to the spring game specifically is we're never going to learn everything about this team or whatever team that we're talking about. You just want to have a little bit of optimism coming away from it. And when you look back to the end of last season, there was a lot of things to not be optimistic about in reference to this team. Obviously, a big one of those things was the offensive line, not being able to block, not being able to protect Spencer Rattler, not being able to open up holes in the run game. And that, when we talk about the X's and O's of football, if you're not winning at the line of scrimmage, then you're going to end up suffering. And we saw that happen with South Carolina, quite a bit of season ago. And in line with that, the running game wasn't what you hoped it was going to be. Of course, the room was more depleted than you would have liked when you got into the season. And even as the season went along, it got more and more depleted as time ended up, wearing on. When you had Juju McDowell go down with his injury, and I'd even say to an effect, when Kerryon Joyner did not end up panning out as the running back that you wanted him to be. Again, a season ago in the spring, Kerryon Joyner is placed in the running back room to fill out the room, to add another body in there, and him being a skilled guy that had played just about every conceivable skill position on offense up to that point, it made a lot of sense why he was tapped to be that guy. But there's a lot of nuance and a lot of specific traits to being a running back that it's really hard to just make that transition all of a sudden in the, sixth year of your college career. So I don't think we should have been surprised that he didn't end up panning out the way that we thought, the way that we were hoping he was going to at a spot that he had never really played before. So you were dealing with that. Mario Anderson came in and he put together some good games, was able to bust off some long runs that do kind of skew his stats in his favor a little bit more in some games compared to others. But all in all, the running game was disappointment. The offensive line was disappointment. Rattler played as best he could, given those circumstances, and made it work to a degree. And same thing with Xavier Legette on the outside. Those are two guys that are obviously going to get drafted later on this week, and rightfully so, because without them, gosh, this team may have won one or two games last season. Like they were so important to what this offense did, being able to elevate those guys around them when they didn't have a whole lot of compliments, around them necessarily in the in the first place. So a lot of reasons to be down. Let's just talk about the offense. The defense was also a concern. You had trouble with that cover of that slot corner spot, covering the nickel pretty much the entire season. Kilgore ended up kind of being the guy that slotted into that role as the season came to a close. He did fine in it, but there was still certainly room for improvement. You couldn't get the penetration you wanted up front in a lot of games to be able to slow down other teams' rushing attacks that limited you in a lot of ways defensively as well. So there were so many holes that you could poke in this team a season ago that so many people going into this spring were like, just give me some hope, give me some optimism for these specific spots. And coming away from it, again, I don't think you are necessarily saying, yes, all the problems are fixed. You shouldn't be saying that because, again, it's a spring session and there's still more development, more time to learn, and more time to improve in a lot of ways. But there's a lot of things that you come away from saying, okay, well, I don't feel as bad about that as maybe I did going into spring a couple of months ago, or a month ago specifically. Coach Beamer on Saturday night talking after the spring game, really just kind of comparing this year's spring session to the prior three that he's had here as the head coach at South Carolina.
Momentum-wise, I like the energy, and I think we had that in 2021 as well. Did I lose that? I thought we had that in 2021, the energy. in the spring game as well. So that's a credit to our fans. We've had energetic spring games and momentum. I think every spring game that we've had, without a doubt, and tonight was awesome. Also, certainly felt that momentum and that energy. Also, I had an earpiece in and was mic'd up with the Taylor Zarzer and Matt Stench from the TV crew all night, and they were commenting on it, just the excitement and the energy in Williams-Brice Stadium, and it's one of the best venues in all of college football, and they're right. And as far as this team, there's a great hunger about them, Rick. There's ever since they came back in January, they've been fantastic. A lot of returning guys that have. We've got 12 players on our team that were here in 2020, and they are adamant about finishing better than what we did last season. And they've been great leaders and have shown a great work ethic and leading the way since they came back in January. And then you inject a bunch of new faces in here, whether it be transfers or all of our freshmen that are here. So that's what I like, is just the closeness of the group. And I've had players on the team tell me just unsolicited in the last few weeks just how close the locker room is and how much better, not that it was bad before, but this is the best and closest team we've had, and everybody's in the same direction and believes in the same thing. And we got a lot of work to do, but I like where we are right now, and I like the direction that we're going as a 2024 team and as a program also, with the way that we're recruiting. And there's a lot of impressive players out there tonight, and a lot of those guys are true freshmen and sophomores.
And that's exactly what you want to hear your coach say. You don't want to hear your coach say, well, this is the worst spring out of the prior 3 that I've been a part of, and this team's not close together at all, and these guys hate each other and all those kind of things. So, there's a little bit of coach speak baked into that, but I can also understand why there's a lot of optimism surrounding this spring and what this team is going to be when the fall indeed does roll around. And this is a big year for Coach Beamer. It's year number 4. Years number 1 and 2 exceeded expectations. Year number 3 was a step backwards. Not a massive step backwards, but you missed a bowl game. And again, we can go back to that Florida game and, play the ifs and buts game of if you stop them on 4th down and all that kind of stuff, then we're talking about 6-6 and going to, the Birmingham Bowl or something like that, which isn't fantastic, but a bowl game's a bowl game, and it's better than going to no bowl game at the end of the day. So there's room for improvement, and South Carolina saw that at the end of last season and knew that there were things that needed to be improved on, and tip of the cap to Coach Beamer and his staff for what they were able to do just in the transfer portal alone through the month of December, going out there and filling a lot of those needs. Offensive line was an issue because of injuries a season ago, but you went out there and you brought in a bunch of offensive linemen and didn't really lose a whole lot. You lost Jalen Nichols. You had Jackson Hughes, who wasn't on scholarship, that transferred out as well. But other than that, you brought in more than you lost on the offensive line, which is good. Just to give you depth more than anything else. Now, again, knock on wood, I don't think South Carolina is going to deal with the catastrophic amount of injuries that they had a season ago, because just that was otherworldly, something that you don't typically see. So you're at least preparing for the worst case scenario. And yes, the offensive line did not look good on Saturday night, but again, they were split. And yes, you had a couple of guys that you project to be starters working together, but it wasn't a full 5 that you say, yeah, these is our starting 5 that were out there in the spring game. And that created some holes that the defense was able to take advantage of. So, again, I'm not freaking out about it right now, but staying healthy is the biggest thing, which they've done up to this point, and hopefully that can translate over to the season as well. I say that Marky Anderson did have a little bit of a back issue on Saturday night, but that seems minor compared to some of the injuries that they dealt with a season ago, and hopefully he can get back to 100% health here very, very soon and get back to contributing the way they know he can, because he was a highly touted guy a season ago. And he's an injury that we don't really talk about a whole lot because he didn't get to be on the field, but he was factoring into playing. And then the injury crept up on him during the season, and they had to shut him down, where he didn't really get that shot. So that's an area that you've obviously addressed as best you can so far at this point in the offseason. And, you're going to name a starting 5 at some point, and hopefully that starting 5 can just stay together over the course of the season. That's the biggest thing more than anything else. I mentioned running back. You bring in a ton of talent at running back, Rocket Sanders being the headliner. He's not playing as of right now because he's coming back from his injury, but Oscar Attaway I thought looked good on Saturday night. I thought he was kind of the quasi-bell cow back, given the fact that you're limited without Rocket Sanders. You also go out there and you bring in a guy in Jawarn Howell from South Carolina State, who, yes, he's coming up from FCS, but if you're going to bring somebody up from that level, then he looked about as good as you can look. I'll say that much. And, we'll see how he factors in there. DJ Braswell. Braswell averaged about over 5 yards carry on Saturday, and he's somebody that we have not given a ton of time and attention to so far, really this entire offseason, because we've been so focused on the shiny objects. Okay, here comes Rocket Sanders, here comes Oscar Adaway, here comes Jordan Howell, Matthew Fuller coming in this summer as a running back that I don't want to say we've forgotten about DJ Braswell, but we haven't given him maybe the attention that he deserves just because he's already been here. And he was kind of part of that running back room that wasn't so great a season ago. So I think we almost kind of, without trying to, just lump him in there with a room that wasn't great overall. And, he flashed in his time that he got a chance to go out there, had some good runs, sprung that block on the Kentucky game that helped Spencer Rattler throw the game-winning touchdown pass to, I believe that was Xavier Legette. So we see those mechanics in there with him and his ability to make some good plays that hopefully you can expand on and get even better at, with this, this season coming up, specifically for DJ Braswell. Wide receiver is wide open at this point in time. It's an area that you're losing great talent in Xavier Legette. You thought you were going to have Juice Wells coming back this season. He kind of pulled a fast one on and you ended up going to Ole Miss. So you have a lot of pieces. Larvadane, Huggins Bruce, Jared Brown, as well as, a guy like Nick Harbor, Tyshawn Russell coming back for another year. Like, you have the seeming pieces in the room. You just don't quite know how you're going to arrange those pieces just yet to give you the best chance of success on offense, and hopefully figure that out. Now, do you still go out in the transfer portal over these next couple weeks and get a taller wide receiver to play that true one spot? You'd like to. Is that guy guaranteed out there going to want to come to South Carolina? That's the part you don't know. And similar to a season ago, you went into the spring portal window after spring practice knowing for a fact you had to get a de facto one at running back. And, it seems pretty inviting when an SEC school is saying, hey, come over here, be our number one guy, and you weren't able to find that guy. Now, yes, they went after Logan Diggs and the kid from NC State, I forget his name right now, and weren't able to land either one of those guys. And hopefully that's not the case with wide receiver, but I've said this before, even if South Carolina got nothing out of the transfer portal in the spring, and they're bound to get a handful of guys, a couple guys, if nothing else, if you got absolutely nothing out of the spring transfer portal window, I think it'd still feel pretty okay about this team. Because, again, they did such a good job in the winter cycle that, again, if nothing happened, you'd still feel decently about this team heading into the season. And we're still got to figure out where the pieces are going to fall as far as wide receiver goes. Again, Larvadane looked good, in his limited action on Saturday. Mazio Bennett made a good catch thrown by Robbie Ashford. So you have some of the pieces there. We'll just see, who steps up and can truly be those guys and be the key contributors when the season does indeed roll around, starting off with Old Dominion in week number 1. Plenty more conversation to have about not only the spring game, but spring practice as a whole. As we kind of put a bow on it, we'll have not a whole lot coming out of Gamecock football over these next couple weeks, as those guys can be taking the month of May off and everything like that. We are awaiting to see who might jump in the transfer portal as the exit interviews are going on as of right now, and guys kind of getting a lay of where they stand with this program at the moment. So we'll see what comes of that, and hopefully South Carolina doesn't lose anybody of significance in the spring portal window. Coming up next, we'll shift gears. Gamecock baseball was in action over the weekend against Arkansas. Comes up short, losing 2 out of 3 games. The aggregate score, I know Jay Phillips was talking about this a lot, was close. I think it was 14-13 in favor of Arkansas, so not a complete dominant weekend for the Razorbacks by any means. Coach Kingston talked last night with Jay Phillips and Terry Ford on the postgame show. We'll get his thoughts on this weekend behind us and the one coming ahead, taking on Kentucky. That's coming up. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you. Terry Ford will join me shortly, coming back from Firehouse Subs up there at Killian Crossing here on your Tuesday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you. Flying solo at the moment. Terry Ford will be back in here with me in a little bit as he's driving back down from the Killian Road Firehouse Subs, or we were out there this morning. And again, appreciate Larry Chandler and folks over there at Firehouse Subs for allowing us to be out there. Always great time as always, as I just finished off a little bit of my turkey bacon ranch, my favorite sandwich from Firehouse Subs. So even if you missed us today, you can always go by Firehouse Subs and get a delicious sandwich anytime that you would like. Time to talk a little bit of baseball. We didn't get to dive into this too much yesterday because, of course, the spring game kind of was the topic of conversation. But Carolina baseball played host to Arkansas over the weekend, losing 2 out of 3. Loses the Friday night game, just a thin margin, 2-1, and then wins second game on Saturday. Saturday ended up being a doubleheader because of the rain, and then you drop game number 3 on Saturday afternoon, and you may not have seen the end of that game because it bled over into when the spring game started. But South Carolina loses 2 of 3 against Arkansas, again the number 2 team in the country. And when you look at South Carolina's season as a whole, and you just look at it with a blind resume type of thing, or take the numbers off the opponents, to be able to say at this point in time that South Carolina has only won 2 of its series. Now the fact that you are halfway through conference play, over halfway through conference play, that 6 series in, South Carolina's only won 2 of them, lost 4. Then you say, well, that's pretty bad. And South Carolina must be miles behind everybody else. Not necessarily. And I brought this up that Jay Phillips brings up the aggregate score of this past weekend, where South Carolina only ended up losing to Arkansas overall on the weekend by 1 run, 14-13. So you're right there neck and neck. Just couldn't take advantage of some opportunities. And Coach Kingston, last night on the halftime show with Jay and Terry, talked about his team not really being all that far off from some of the best teams in the nation.
In my mind and my heart, I know that we are a really good team. What we are guilty of right now is we have played Arkansas, who has been ranked number 1 3 times. We have played Texas A&M, who has been ranked number 1 3 times. We played Vanderbilt at home, who was ranked number 2. So there's 9 games of teams that are ranked 1 or 2 in the country, and we're 5-4 in those games. And so that is, by far. You'd love to go 9-0, but going 5-4 against teams that are ranked 1 and 2 in the country is nothing to sneeze at. And do I think we need to continue to get better? Absolutely, we do, in all areas. But our rating, RPI, is 14 right now. The new metric that D1 Baseball came out with, that they think is the best measure of the quality of baseball teams, has us ranked 10th right now. So we always want to get better, but this is not a team that I feel like, oh, man, I don't know what's going on. It's a good team. It's going to win a lot of games. And, right now we're playing the best teams in the country. We're going toe-to-toe with them. We went toe-to-toe with Arkansas all weekend. People are saying that that's the team that could win the national championship. And I don't know where you really noticed, okay, where were the big differences in the teams you mentioned? It was 14-13 aggregate score over the weekend. And to me, that means it's 2 teams that just went at it all weekend. So if that's a team that can win a national championship, I don't think we're very far behind.
And I can see how people may not like to look at it from that perspective, because it's like, well, yeah, you're right there with them, but you're not quite over the hump just yet. But I understand what he's saying. And when you look at the South Carolina team, there's still issues with this team. There's still things they're trying to correct. And to be able to say they haven't even shored up their weekend rotation as of yet. And I'll get to that in a moment. So to be a team that hasn't shored up its weekend rotation halfway through conference play, in the regular season at least, a team that is leaving runners on base at way too high of a clip, mixing the lineup around. You've had guys go in and out with injuries and all that kind of stuff, to still be right there and being able to say that, you were 1 run away from, or I guess 2 runs away technically from taking the series against Arkansas on Friday night. If the rest of the weekend ended up working out the way that it did, the fact that, you did sweep Vanderbilt, which is great. The fact that you weren't getting swept by the Alabamas, the Texas A&Ms, that you were still at least coming away with the win, all does add up. And the RPI is such a funny thing, because it's easy to look at South Carolina and say, oh, well, they must not be all that great if they can only win 2 conference series. As you mentioned, they're 14th in the RPI right now. They're still projected to host a regional at the end of the year. Like, this weekend did not change anything in the opinions and the eyes of those people projecting for what the postseason is going to be. So in a way, it was kind of like a mulligan, I guess. Like you didn't really have anything to lose this weekend. You had a lot to gain, certainly, but you didn't exactly tumble down the hill because you lost Arkansas. And you made it competitive, which I think that's worth something. Now you get another good team this weekend. You know, Arkansas's number 2 in the RPI. Kentucky's number 3. So you go into this weekend knowing that, all right, well, you likely don't want to put up to back-to-back L's as far as series go against a team like, Kentucky and Arkansas back-to-back weeks, because that might knock you down a couple pegs. But even still, all the goals are in front of this team for South Carolina, and hopefully can pick up another couple victories this weekend against Kentucky. You have the week off as far as playing a midweek game because of exams, so you can hyper-focus on the great team that you have ahead and not have to worry about playing someone on Tuesday or Wednesday. So hopefully that bodes well for South Carolina this upcoming week. As I mentioned, the weekend rotation has not been solidified up to any point this season, but coming away from this weekend, optimism that we may have finally found our starting 3. Here's Coach Kingston yesterday talking about solidifying that rotation.
That's a good question. I think all 3 starts gave us a chance to win. Using Roman, and then the combination of Roman and Ty Good on Friday, we gave up 2 runs. And then you look at the Saturday game that we won, we gave up 3 runs with the combination of Eli Jones and Becker. And then SQ gave us probably the best start of anybody on Sunday, where he could kind of watch for 2 days and then use his pitches in the best way possible. He gave us a start that gave us a chance to win. We had the 1 5-run inning late that we gave up, which was the difference in the ball game. So I kind of like how it looked piggybacking those guys because they're different type pitchers, and statistically Becker and Good have been much better out of the bullpen than they have as starters, and so it's a good combination to kind of piggyback guys and really have dual starters each day. And I think it worked out well. Again, when you face the best team in the country, arguably, and you have a chance to win all 3 games, I think that's a good step.
And again, that's something that the only sure thing going into every weekend so far in conference play is that Eli Jones was going to get a start. Now, typically it's been on Friday night, but the way that you kind of wanted to shift things around this weekend, he got the start on Saturday, and lo and behold, that was the one game that you did obviously end up winning there. And, as we've talked about, you can continue to play this game of, all right, we're just going to kind of feel it out as the weekend goes along, depending on how many guys we use on Friday and Saturday to determine that starting pitcher on Sunday. And again, you've been able to tread water with that up to this point, but ideally, especially as you get into these tough series to close out the year, Kentucky, Georgia, Tennessee, you got to go on the road to Como, which is obviously never easy. You want to have that more solidified rotation, kind of a good idea of what your plan going into the weekend is instead of having to kind of adjust on the fly like you've done so many times this season. So Kimball, again, looked good until the blister issue came up. Hopefully that's not something that's going to derail him for too much. Eli Jones did what he usually does. He gave up a couple hits, but limited them to 1 run. Then SQ, just a great performance on on game number 3 on Saturday, going 5 2/3, giving up 4 hits and 1 run. As Coach Kingston mentioned there, that inning between Pitzer and Polk after SQ went out is where things kind of went off the rails for South Carolina from a pitching perspective. So a good solid weekend on your starters. Hopefully that translates into another good weekend ahead, taking on Kentucky upcoming at the end of the week. First game, Friday night, 7 o'clock first pitch. Pre-game coverage starting at 6:45 right here on The Game. We'll have plenty more to talk about in reference to baseball as the day goes along. Want to dive into spring football and take a look outside of South Carolina because there are some other spring games going on this weekend. A couple coaches had some things to say and different dynamics for each one of these teams as they look ahead to their respective 2024 seasons. That's all coming up. Tyler Head along with you. Dave Cherry will be here at some point coming back from Firehouse Subs on Killian Road here on the halftime show on The Game. Welcome back in. It's the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you here on this Tuesday afternoon. Terry Ford will be back in here with me here shortly as he's making his way down from the Firehouse Subs up there at Killian Crossing. This weekend kind of wrapped up spring games for the most part around the country, at least for big programs as most. Ideally, a lot of teams around the country try to get theirs done before the portal window opened this past Tuesday, but there are some schools like South Carolina that did have theirs a little bit later on compared to the others. But it's not a detriment. You're still going to have the opportunity to be active in the portal. You're just maybe a little bit delayed with guys going into the portal compared to some of these other teams around the country. Now, I've been trying to kind of take a look around at each, team this spring. Around the SEC specifically, and kind of where they stand, what their highs, what their lows are, and how they're feeling about their respective programs going into this fall. And this past weekend, you had a couple other SEC teams in action with their respective spring games that are a little bit of a mixed bag in terms of what they're looking for in terms of this upcoming season. And I'll start off with perhaps the headliner of big stories coming to the SEC, that being the University of Texas. And here's what Steve Sarkisian had to say after his team's spring game on Saturday.
From the game perspective, probably the most exciting spring game I've ever been a part of. I've been doing this quite some time, but that was pretty entertaining on a lot of levels. And what I loved about it was, we played tackle football for over 100 plays and nobody got injured. And so much of I watch these spring games and people are playing two-hand touch and they're playing flag football. And, tough still matters, at least in Austin, Texas it does. And our guys tackled, we played hard, we played tough. Some playmakers showed up tonight. Some young guys showed up today with some big plays.
And again, that's Steve Sarkisian talking after the Texas spring game on Saturday. In a way, I feel like he's kind of calling out these other spring games for being a little bit too soft and not playing real tackle football. And I get what he's saying. And it's easy to say that in hindsight of coming away from it with nobody getting injured. But I guarantee you, he was on pins and needles the entire time, hoping nobody was going to get injured, and seeing guys getting tackled, at the clip that they were probably was a little unsettling until you come away from the game and again don't get injured. But Texas is such an interesting conundrum. And by the way, it feels so weird talking about them being in the SEC. In fact, on Saturday, they had their spring game on the SEC Network, and they had Peter Burns and some of the SEC Network crew out there at the spring game. They had a little setup with, like the helmets and everything on the sidelines, and it was kind of like the first, actual dose of, oh, wow, Texas is really in the SEC, like seeing it in person or seeing it, happen in front of your eyes. Now, I did think it was funny that, Coach Sarkisian, when he's talking to the media, had the little, display, whatever you call it, stand up behind him that has the sponsors and the Texas logo and stuff. They still had Big 12 logos on that. So I guess they won't officially transition over to the SEC stuff until June 1st, I believe, or July 1st is the first day that they're officially going to do that. So they're technically still in the Big 12 as of right now, but they are preparing for the upcoming SEC season. And looking at the stats from the spring game out there in Austin, Texas over the weekend, Arch Manning went 9 of 25 for 355 yards and 3 touchdowns, leading Team White to the victory in the spring game. And I heard Bill and Preston talking about this a little bit earlier on this morning with their, with their message board genius segments. They read a message board comment from somebody within the Texas fan base, and they're already projecting that Arch Manning is going to be, the guy for this upcoming fall. And his option to stay at Texas, I think, surprised a lot of people, as he is somebody that is obviously very highly touted, coming out as a big name prospect, from high school, going to a blue blood program like Texas. People expect, okay, well, he didn't get that starting job in his first year, and Quinn Ewers decides to come back for another year. Surely he's going to go off into the transfer portal, and the dude's making money hand over fist from NIL, despite never touching the field in a meaningful snap. But it's so funny watching a fan base like that so quickly want to move on from what's been a proven commodity at this point in time in Quinn Ewers. I mean, the dude helped lead you to a college football playoff this past year, the first one your team had ever done. And we're on the doorstep of maybe going to the national championship for the first time in almost 20 years. Quinn Ewers is going to be a Heisman favorite going into the season. He's going to be projected as a high pick in next year's NFL draft. And I know that doesn't mean everything at the end of the day, but it's a pretty good indication of where he is right now as a quarterback. And he's shown you no signs of losing that job. But a lot of people obviously going to be clamoring for Arch Manning, the first sign of problems that Quinn Ewers has, at any point this season. Regardless, this is a very good Texas team, and they're coming into the SEC to contend. And I think we all get that kind of this preconceived notion when teams join the SEC, much like when Missouri and A&M joined a decade ago, like, oh, they're going to have to go through the grinder of the SEC. They're going to have a tough time getting the way to the top. And to a degree, both those schools had varying levels of success. Now, A&M came in and set the world on fire the second they stepped in the door. Johnny Football beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa, the whole 9 yards. We know the story at this point in time, and that surprised a lot of people. Now, they weren't able to sustain that success necessarily, and Kevin Sumlin was a victim of having success too quickly at a place like that. That ended up being his downfall. Missouri was kind of the opposite. The first year for them wasn't all that great in the SEC, and then they followed that up with back-to-back SEC championship game appearances, and since then have I wouldn't say fallen off, but kind of, treaded water in that middle ground of the SEC for the most part, except for this past season, where they finally put together another double-digit win campaign and made it all the way to what the Cotton Bowl and beat Ohio State. But Texas is going to come in here legitimately with the shot to be an SEC champion, and we're in year number one. And that's sacrilegious to say to a lot of people, but it's true because they've proven that they have built themselves into a power entity in college football, and they're going to come here wanting to, expecting to go toe-to-toe with Georgia, expecting to go toe-to-toe with Alabama, depending on how good they are, Ole Miss, all these teams that we project to be really good in the SEC. Anyway, Texas is going to be right there in the mix. They're not joining the SEC to be in that middle ground. They're joining to be one of the top 3 to 4 teams in the league on a year-in, year-out basis, and at least coming in as of right now, I think they have a very good shot at doing that. And Oklahoma, a little farther down the ladder. They took a huge jump in year number 2 under Brent Venables, though. Now, do I expect them to come in here and win 10 games? Not necessarily, but if they won 8, maybe even 9, or maybe even in the mix for the college football playoff, I wouldn't sit here and tell you I'd be shocked by it. These 2 good programs. There's a reason the SEC wanted to go out and bring these programs in. One, they have the brand recognition, and then they bring in a ton of money, a ton of eyes, a ton of revenue to the SEC as a whole, but they're 2 competitive programs. Now, yes, Texas has been the butt of jokes for a long time. Oh, they're back, they're not back, they're back, they're not back, but they're back. We can definitively say they are back and in business. And in a 12-team college football playoff, I expect Texas to be a perennial contender year in, year out, on a year-in, year-out basis. One of those teams that's going to make it 5 out of 7 years or something at that clip. And coming to the SEC is not going to be easy. I'm not going to pretend like it is. And they're going to lose some games. They're not going to go undefeated and run roughshod through the entire conference in their first year, but it doesn't mean they can't win double-digit games. You're telling me Texas can't be 10-2 in the SEC, especially with a guy like Quinn Ewers coming back, riding that momentum from the team as a whole? Yes, they lost pieces of the NFL draft, but they're still going to be pretty darn good. So, for anybody that expects Texas to come in here and get slapped around in the SEC in year number 1, I don't think that's going to be the case. And, we'll see how they do as the season goes along. But, again, Arch Manning, leading White to the 35-34 win out there in Austin and stirring up a lot of conversation about the quarterback position, even though there shouldn't be at this point in time. We'll come back, get our Firehouse Subs text of the hours, and wrap up hour number 1 of the halftime show. Terry Ford will be along with me in a few minutes. Tyler Head along with you here on your Tuesday on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you here on the game, wrapping up hour number one. Again, Terry Ford will be with me in just a few minutes. It is indeed time for our Firehouse Subs text of the hour. Chad weighs in, talking about baseball a little bit earlier. Heard some of what Coach Kingston had to say on the postgame show yesterday. Talking to Jay and Terry and said, why isn't Kingston ever emotional, always positive? Nothing is ever positive all the time. I agree with that to a point. I just think that's kind of Coach Kingston's style. I feel like he's just kind of a glass half full kind of guy. And look, there is plenty of things to be optimistic about with this team. It's not all doom and gloom, as he brought up. And again, I understand how that can come off sounding bad to some people when talking about you're not far off from the best teams, because you immediately say, well, we should be beating the best teams, the talent that you have, and the emphasis that gets put on baseball at a school like this. You should be able to beat those teams. In the case of point, they haven't gotten quite over that hump yet. Again, it's not like they've gotten completely shut out in all these games, and their record against these teams is 1-14 or something like that. You're right there. You're on the line. It only takes correcting a few things on this team to get yourself over that hump, hopefully. And again, Kentucky this weekend is an opportunity to do that. As I mentioned, you have a full week off, given the fact that you don't play don't play a midweek game because of exams, to hopefully focus in and correct some of those issues that you saw rearing their head once again this past weekend against Arkansas. And the biggest thing for me is the guys getting left on base, which is something that's happened all season long. This is not a new thing with this team. I said last week, after you went down to Florida and thankfully came away with the series victory, South Carolina left 28 guys on base over the course of those 3 games. I said, if you do that against Arkansas, you're not going to win the series. And guess what happened? They left 28 guys on base over the course of 3 games against Arkansas and did not win the series. That being said, and this is where I get it's going to frustrate people, but I'm playing devil's advocate here, trying to show you the optimistic spin that you can put on this. You left 28 guys on base, and you still almost took 2 out of 3. You lost game number 1 on Friday night by 1 run. You had 1 bad inning where you gave up 5 runs on Saturday in game number 2. That was game number 3 of the series, and that's what you lost. Like it's these razor-thin things. And yes, in the SEC, with as tough as this conference is, you have to be as close to perfect as possible to be able to win these series. But that's what I guess the whole point of this is, which, again, I understand the frustration with Coach Kingston phrasing it the way that he did. But when you look at this team, they're not far off. They really aren't. Now you're dealing with some shifts in the lineup as of right now that don't make things easy. Will Tippett out with an injury as of right now after getting hit in the head over the weekend, and Lee Ellis came in and did the best he could. But Tippett was just heating up, and you hate losing a guy that was finally kind of hitting his stride there. Now Ellis did end up going 500 on the weekend, went 3 of 6. In his plate appearances over the course of those last 2 games. So that's a good, strong showing, and certainly optimism, with that. But you would like to get Will Tippett back if he can continue to play at the level that he's playing at right up leading to his injury. And we got to give a tip of the cap to Austin Brilling as well. Like, here's a guy that you brought in as a transfer, and we talked about him a lot in the offseason, didn't really know what his contribution was going to end up being, and finally getting his opportunity to start and lead off. And he goes out there and has a phenomenal weekend. Goes 4 of 10 with 2 RBIs. Like this guy is somebody that took advantage of his opportunity and stepped up. Similar thing with Dalton Reeves. Talked about Dalton Reeves a lot. Now, he didn't have the best weekend overall, went 1 of 9 with 1 RBI, but in the times that he's gotten to go to the plate this year, he's made the most of it more often than not. And again, you hate to be still shifting things around at this point in the season, but you got a lot of talent on this lineup, even in guys that have not been contributing as much. So figuring out what that right combination is really kind of seemingly where they're at this point in time. And yes, you want to figure that out as soon as possible so you have that shirt up for these last couple of series of SEC play, taking on Kentucky, taking on Georgia, taking on Tennessee to lead into the SEC tournament and hopefully a deep offseason run. The pieces are there. You got to figure out how to arrange them. Now, one piece that did struggle this weekend was Ethan Petrie. And if you want to hear Coach Kingston, talking about an area of concern, he gave his thoughts yesterday on why exactly Ethan Petrie struggled over the weekend.
Yeah, they didn't give him any strikes to hit, and he was a little too anxious all weekend. I looked at the data earlier today, and we get every pitch that's thrown to each hitter, we can see where that is in their strike zone. And the number of strikes thrown to him this weekend was about 15%. And because he wants to help us win, because he's a competitor, I think he went outside the strike zone much too often. And because of that, look, when you face an average fastball velocity of 97 miles an hour, like we faced this weekend, if you're going outside the strike zone, you're not going to have success. And he learned that this weekend, and it'll be a good lesson for him. He's got to stay within the strike zone, and he can't chase no matter how much pressure he wants to put on himself to help us win games. Sometimes you just have to take your walk. And it was clear that they said they weren't going to let him beat them this weekend because they threw him such a low number of strikes. And that'll be a lesson learned for him that sometimes you got to pass the baton to the next guy.
And he's absolutely right. And now look, Ethan Petrie, one of the most talented guys in the entire country. You've seen him do a lot of great and special things for the South Carolina team, but this past weekend was certainly not one of his best performances in terms of, like Coach Kingston said, chasing things that were out of the zone and leading to all those strikeouts and just having a dismal weekend as a whole at the plate. And we look at the numbers for South Carolina this season, it's not a surprise that he is indeed second in the team in strikeouts as of right now. Will Tippett leading the team, but again, Will Tippett has caught fire as of late and cleaned that up a little bit. But when you have a guy like Ethan Petrie, you just want to be more consistent. It's great that he can hit home runs and all that kind of stuff, but you don't want it to be feast or famine every single time where it's like, okay, he's either going to hit a home run or he's just going to strike out. You want more consistency in between. And as Coach Kingston alluded to there, hopefully this is a learning experience for him coming away from playing a really great team in Arkansas that has a good pitching staff. One of the best in the entire country, seemingly, of course, the best pitcher in Hagen Smith that you saw on Friday night, and hopefully you take something away from that and can use that going forward as that learning experience, to be better against Kentucky and these teams that you have to finish out the the regular season of SEC play. Terry Ford has indeed finally made it here into the Herndon Chevrolet Studios. For watching here on the Game TV, sponsored by Shepherd's Glass and powered by friends over at Integrated Media. He made it just in time for hour number one to wrap up. So we'll hear from him, get his thoughts on what's going on coming up in hour number two. It is the halftime show. I'm Tyler Head. He is Terry Ford here on your Tuesday on the Game. Hey.
All right, 803-875-MENS. Men's Clinic of South Carolina. We talk about this all the time. I mean, we're guys, we're dudes, we're men, we get older. Things aren't going the way they used to. We don't want to tell anybody because, we're tough, we're men, we're manly. But you don't say anything, but your mind's talking to you. Something's up. We're not sleeping like we used to. We're not as strong as we used to be in the gym. We don't recover from exercise. We have a lack of life drive, sex drive, professional drive, personal drive. We can't remember where we sit stuff. We used to have a mind like a steel trap, whatever that means. Could be simple. Could be low testosterone. Call the Men's Clinic of South Carolina and do a free confidential consultation. If they think it's low T, they'll put you on a program to get you back to feeling you again. 803-875-MENS. It's the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Make that call. Feel better. All right. Halftime show as I once again knock out my earbuds. Just started.
Well, I was gonna say we're off to a rousing start today.
Uh-huh. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, thanks for blathering on there for an hour for me while we got everything together. I really just wanted to eat more subs.
Oh, I know.
There was no, well, we had to take everything down, Tyler, put everything away, technically make sure that we had everything buttoned up. Now Josh and I just want to eat another sub.
Well, I typically am there until noon. I know how it goes.
Oh, yeah.
I get it.
I tried that Cuban barbecue. I think it's called the barbecue Cuban.
Yeah, you like it?
Well, I like a good Cuban
Now,
sandwich.
you didn't want the pickles on it.
Yeah, but Chris talked me into it,
Okay.
and he was right. It was good.
Okay.
But the pickles added something to it, so I give Chris credit. See, it's funny. We were sitting there, and you can tell Chris is a foodie,
Oh, yeah.
massive foodie.
Sure.
And I say that in a nice way. My girlfriend's a foodie. I get it.
Totally.
They appreciate food, not like the stuff that I eat, but like upper level food. Well, we're sitting there, and they were talking about the turkey bacon ranch. It's the one you like.
My
so much.
favorite, yes.
I don't like ranch.
See, here's the thing. I don't usually either.
Oh, really?
That,
Really?
because here's the thing.
Okay.
As I've said this before, Firehouse Subs has opened my eyes to a lot of things on food that I otherwise would have never eaten. Not that I've been picky, but I'm just like, I don't like tomatoes on sandwiches, never put them on there. But when somebody gives you a free sandwich, you're not going to sit there and say, I don't want that. I don't want that. You're just going to eat it. So I tried the TBR. It has onions, tomatoes, ranch, all those things that I wouldn't typically get on a sandwich. I'm like, dang, that's pretty good.
Well, so I said to them, I don't like ranch. And I don't know, who flipped out more, not in a mean way, but just in a surprising way, Wes or Chris.
Yeah.
Because they were like, huh? What? Huh? I'm like, yeah, I'm not down with ranch.
Oh, I don't eat ranch on anything else.
I'm not. It's not my bag. And so then they said, well, then you don't like mayonnaise? I go, no, I love mayonnaise. What?
See, I don't like mayonnaise.
So I love mayonnaise. I don't
But
like
again,
ranch.
mayonnaise is on a lot of Firehouse Subs, and I eat it the way it is. So, in a way, I guess I do.
You just like anything Firehouse puts in front of you.
I really
it's okay.
do. I can't complain.
It's really good. I mean, seriously, the sandwiches are phenomenal. So they're looking at me like, wait a minute. You love mayonnaise, but you hate ranch. I said, yeah, pretty much. They go, you're weird. I'm like, okay.
Wait, mayonnaise is not the base for ranch, is it? Can't you make mayonnaise? Can't you make ranch with mayonnaise? Is that the thing?
I believe, yes.
I think so.
So they looked at me like, I had two heads or my fly was down or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Chris like, okay, here, you got to go. And he's telling me about a pizza place sort of like near where we were out there with Firehouse at Killian Crossing.
Yeah.
You got to go there, get your pizza, get their ranch, and dip it in there. It's the best ranch. He goes, I could drink it. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a whirl. Because, you said I should try the pickles because they were like the spicy pickles with the Cuban.
Yeah.
I will now go and I'll get pizza because I can eat pizza every day.
Sure.
And I will dip it in ranch just so I'll give it a shot, Chris. Yeah. I'll what the heck? Because I can't stand ranch dressing at all. Can't stand it.
Now, do you eat other dressing?
Oh, I love dressing. I mean, I'm all about Thousand Islands, French. I tell you what, I could drink honey mustard.
Okay.
I love honey mustard.
Sure.
So yeah, I like dressing. I can do the vinaigrettes and the Italians and all that mess. I don't like blue cheese and I don't like ranch.
I'm with you on blue cheese. You lost me at mold.
Yeah. Yes. I'm the same way.
I'm very I don't mess around with expiration dates on food. You can ask my wife. I'm like, that bread expired 3 days ago. I'm not eating it. I'm throwing it out.
I tell you, I don't want to be the guy to ever be in the hospital with food poisoning.
Yeah.
So I'm a little overboard like you.
I've been in the hospital with
you've
food
had
poisoning.
That?
Yeah. Not fun.
Then, I was going to say, no wonder you're so weird about dates.
Exactly.
But I am. And I could pick up stuff off the road and eat it. My stomach is cast iron, right? I could care less. Oh, look, there's a piece of a sandwich. Look, there's bugs all over it. I could eat that and it wouldn't bother me because my stomach is, I don't know what the hell. I'm lucky.
Big old teeth marks in it already.
Oh, I don't care. I'd wrestle possums for food and it'd be okay. But I never want to get, because I've never had those problems.
Right.
I don't want them. So I'm a little weird on freshness dates as I've gotten older. When I was younger, I'd care less. Freshness date, what is that, January of 1998? Hell, I'll eat it.
Yeah.
But now I'm a little bit more weird about that now as I've gotten older.
I don't play around with it.
Yeah, so no blue cheese, no ranch, but I am going to because, hey, Chris Clark, I followed him down that road to the pickles on the sandwich. I'll try this ranch with the pizza at this place he was telling me about.
See, you're learning.
You know what? My girlfriend totally changed me about food because this is going to be stunning to you. I was never a foodie. You want a minute?
Well, I imagine your palate before you met her was probably not very vast.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of my jokes in life. I have a drive-through window diet. I can only eat food from a drive-through window. Doctor prescribed it. So she's taking me to play. Like I'll look at her and go, hey, let's get some Taco Bell. She goes, seriously? Why don't we go to a Mexican restaurant down the road?
Yeah, if you got to wait.
I know. I like Taco Bell. And she's like, now we're going to go to this one place. And, of course, that one place is fantastic.
Oh, it's phenomenal. You're like, wow, I love this.
Yeah, so I'm like, yeah, this is great. Okay, you win. But don't get me wrong. I'll still go to Taco Bell.
Sure.
But, yeah, so I'm going to go with Clark on this. I'll try it. I'll give it a whirl. He didn't steer me wrong on the sandwich. So we had a good time at Firehouse. Thank you very much, Larry, and all the crew at Firehouse over at Killian's Crossing. We always enjoy every trip to a Firehouse.
Yes.
So we thank you very much. Great hospitality.
I did take a wrong turn coming back, so it took me a little bit longer to get back here.
I'm going to pretend it's a right and a left, bro.
Well, it wasn't that. When I got on the interstate, I missed my exit.
Did you miss 277?
I did. Yeah. Because so here's the thing.
Were you like daydreaming? Were you just spacing?
Maybe a little bit. But see, here's the thing. I'm so used to, because we've been out to countless Firehouse subs kind of on the north side there. And typically I get on, they're usually off 26. So I get on 26, just drive straight down to the city. Right. It's, 20 minutes of just driving straight in one direction. I was so used to that. I wasn't thinking like, oh, this is different. And I had my little map thing up, and I realized it at the last second. I was like, oh, crap. I just missed my turn. So I had to go up 2 Notch Road and get back on I-20 that way. I found my way back, but I cost myself probably 7 or 8 minutes.
I hate when your brain goes on autopilot when you're driving.
Sure.
And we have no excuse now because we got these phones with GPSs and everything. We got no excuse anymore.
No, it's one of those things when you get, especially if it's driving to work or somewhere you go a lot, and you get there and you're like, I don't remember any of that.
I know.
How did I get here?
I just go on autopilot. But then when you do that, sometimes you look up and go, wow, I just crossed the Georgia border. What the hell did I do? Well, anyway. All right, so 1 o'clock hour is always football, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Obviously, a lot of conversation about the spring game on Saturday, and now we have no football to talk about for a long time.
Well, we do have football to talk about where we're going to take the drops of information that we got away from Saturday, and we're going to get all we can out of those.
Oh, we're going to squeeze them. We're going to squeeze them till they're dry.
And that's why I like to call yesterday Overreaction Monday, because I saw some people, and this wasn't just yesterday with people here, but coming away from the game on Saturday, play calling was awful. Yeah. Offensive line's terrible. Man, Dylan Stewart is going to win the Heisman Trophy.
Lars Seller's going to be a superstar.
Is Cam Newton 2.0. I saw all these things. Sure. I'm like, I get optimism. I get concern. Let's meet in the middle somewhere, because I think that's where the truth is.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can't. A spring game is a practice. It's just a glorified practice. I mean, really, you're not tackling the quarterbacks per se. You're not running your real offense. You're not running your real defense. You're just out there. It's a practice for the fans. Is that fair?
Yeah.
A practice for the fans.
100%.
And as you're watching a practice, you can't get too giddy over what you thought was wow. You can't get giddy or negative and go over what you thought was terrible. We said this yesterday. For an example, the offensive line. They split up the offensive line.
Yeah.
So the 5 starters are somewhere between the garnet and the black.
Yeah.
And really, they might have an idea who they think going into summer are their ones, but you still have summer, and they're guys who can still win gigs on the offensive line.
Sure.
So you don't really know what you don't know about the offensive line because, to be honest, the coaching staff is still probably searching at this point what their combination of the 5 is going to be, right?
It also didn't help that the defensive line you were going up against is the most experienced group on this entire team that is, 6, 7 guys deep at this point in time? That's not a favorable matchup when you're still trying to figure out your starting 5.
Yeah, and you nailed it. I mean, you got a lot of experienced dudes on this defensive front, whether it's on the line or at linebacker. You got a 5-star edge guy. You got 2 4-star linebackers. You got a 4-star kid from the year before coming back. You hope develops. You just got that's overwhelming to an offensive line that's still a work in progress. And we'll see where it ends up. Now, should you be concerned about the offensive line after last year? Oh, absolutely. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, don't be concerned, everything's okay. No, we don't know. We don't know. But what we do know, to me, is until they line up against Kentucky,
Yeah.
to be fair. No offense, Old Dominion. But until they line up against Kentucky, you really don't know what you have on the offensive line.
I will say this. You'll know if there's a big concern if it's a problem against Old Dominion.
Yes.
If you can't stop them, if you can't run for more than 2.5 yards per carry, the back's getting hit in the backfield or right at the line of scrimmage, we'll know if it's a problem right away.
If we're watching the same thing we saw last year's opener, where the quarterback is running for his life,
Right.
and there's 9 sacks and about 700 hurries, and you can't run the ball,
Well,
there's an issue.
we might have to phone it in for the season at that point.
That would be bad. But this is not the time to make any grand proclamations about anything. Yes, you're hoping Dylan Stewart is going to be something close to the player you saw in the spring game. That'd be great.
Sure.
Same thing with Lenora Sellers. You're hoping that once you take the game plan out of the bowl of vanilla ice cream and maybe add some sprinkles and some Hershey syrup and some bananas and make it a banana split or some kind of really cool exotic ice cream sundae. You don't know what you got there either. You don't know about the wide receivers. You just don't. Rocket Sanders wasn't available for the spring game.
Yeah.
So, you didn't see your number one running back.
No, and I think, respected Al Loggins, I don't think he's painted us a picture of, a lie when it comes to this
No.
offense. He was very honest. When we
Yes.
talked to him at Pro Day, we were trying to be nice about it. Hey, offensive line and run game, not what you want. He's like, you can tell me it sucked because I know it sucked. He is very honest about what it is. And sure, he's going to say that it's going to be better this year, and we'll have to wait and see when the fall rolls around. But, you got to give him the benefit of the doubt, especially with an offense that is going to be vastly different from the one a season ago.
Yeah, you got quarterbacks that can use their legs. You're going to have, if Lenora Sellers wins the gig, which we really believe he will, you got a guy that's never started a game in college football, period. Forget in the SEC, never started against anyone. The receiver group, you got some potential in there and some guys who've been productive in the past with other schools. Now you're going to meld them together to hope you can put together a productive, explosive receiver core. It's just it's stuff there that can make this thing really good. It's just if you expected a finished product on Saturday, that for me that's just not believable to expect that. And you weren't going to get, even if they thought they had a finished product, you weren't getting it anyway.
Right.
Because no one's showing off any of their stuff in a spring game. And when you talk about, if someone said to me, man, that play calling, okay, all righty. But again, Dal Loggins told you going in, Tyler.
But I saw it. I saw people saying it. And I'm like, guys.
The man told you going in it was going to be vanilla, right?
Yeah. Maybe they were expecting a few more sprinkles.
I guess, or there's a little bit of Hershey syrup.
Which, you ran a fake with 2 DBs.
Kind of cool.
That's more flavor than I think a lot of us were expecting.
Yeah, it wasn't no hot dog eating contest. There was no Ferris wheel at the 50-yard line, no slam dunk competitions, but it was what you knew. You were going to get vanilla offensive play calling. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
All right, so we're doing football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We will come back in here. A couple news and notes from the world of college football. Iowa quarterback went to the transfer portal, and everybody's like, so? Well, we'll get into that and some other things from college football coming up. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, as we roll along. Do not forget you can pick us up on the Game app. Just go to Google Play, iTunes, and then search 1075thegame.com or 1075thegame, and boom, you get the app, and you can download it. You can watch us on the Game TV. Feel free to do that as well. Hey, how you doing? All right, it's a halftime show. Some stuff from the world of college football. That is next right here on the Game. football on the 1 o'clock hour on the halftime show, sponsored by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Football, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. All right, couple of pieces of information from the world of college football, and we'll also get to some Jeff Lebby, Mississippi State head coach, and also Mike Elko, the A&M head coach, two new guys. Elko, of course, did really good work at Duke and now at A&M. And Jeff Lebby has been an offensive genius for a long time and now gets his first crack at head coaching, and he'll be in Starkville. First of all, though, Iowa quarterback Deacon Hill, who started with like the last 9 games for the Hawkeyes last year, has put himself in the transfer portal. And look, I don't want to just look, that offense stunk with Cade McNamara at quarterback.
Sure.
That offense, I think, would stink with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. Again, Kurt Ferentz kid, it might have been the worst offensive coordinator performance in the history of college football.
Right.
It was just bad. The only reason Kurt Ferentz kid kept his gig as the offensive coordinator, what was his last name again, Tyler?
Ferentz.
And the head coach's last name is?
Also Ferentz.
There we go. No nepotism there at all. So, to be fair to Deacon Hill, these numbers are not good. But maybe you put him with an offensive coordinator who knows what he's doing in an offense that makes sense and might actually have some weapons, and maybe Deacon Hill will be a good quarterback. At Iowa, though, completed 48% of his throws, 5 TDs, 8 picks. They're just not good. So Hill hopefully will go somewhere where he has a chance to play in a real offense. And, of course, he started at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And then moved on to Iowa.
Like you said, and here's the thing, too, that I find really funny, because, everybody rightfully pointed the finger at Brian Ferentz and him being the issue with that offense. But, Kurt Ferentz has always kept the same type of offense his entire time there as a head coach. It doesn't matter who they're going to bring in as the offense coordinator. I even forget who they hired as the OC, but it's still going to be very much the same type of offense they've been running for the better part of 25 years under Kurt Ferentz. They're not suddenly going to turn into a West Coast up-tempo team that's snapping the ball every 10 seconds or something like that. They're going to stick to being a power eye, football in a phone booth, run it down your throat type of team that the quarterback throws the ball, 10 times a game or something like that, and they play a very slow pace. That's just the brand of football they play under Kurt Ferentz, which is a shame because they always have good defense. I said this last year, if Kurt Ferentz would get into the 21st century in offense, Iowa would be a powerhouse every single year.
Well, Kurt Ferentz last year won 10 games.
Yeah.
Kurt Ferentz is a good head coach, but you can make a case, to be honest, that Kurt Ferentz has almost committed program felony.
Yeah.
As good as the defense is at Iowa and the special teams at Iowa, if you would just have a solid offense, you don't need 4 wides and craziness. If you would just run some type of modern offense and hand it over to a real offensive coordinator and get out of the way, how good could Iowa be? It's
wonderful.
Scary.
They'd be great.
Scary how good they could be. Tim Lester, by the way, is the new offensive coordinator.
Good for him. Have fun. Hope you like corn.
Yeah, Tim. Here, Ferentz hands him the playbook. It's 2 pages. Yeah, pretty much.
Veer right, veer left.
There are no pass plays in here.
We don't do that here.
What are we doing? All right. One other note. A judge in Tallahassee has ordered Florida State and the Atlantic Coast Conference intermediation in hopes of settling their lawsuit. Judge John C. Cooper has technically approved the ACC's motion to dismiss Monday, but gave Florida State 7 days to amend its complaint because the university needs more. They need more specifics regarding key facts in the case. He said could be worth $500 million. Basically, guys, get in a room and figure it out.
Essentially.
And they're not going to. It's just that this is not going to get figured out in mediation.
And it's kind of this point. It's such a fractured relationship at this point in time that, and Florida State, as opposed to Clemson, has been very vocal about not wanting to be in the ACC anymore. They've said how much they hate being there, how bad they're trying to get out, and then they realize, oh crap, we can't get out. It's just an awkward room to be in. Like, well, we know you don't want to be here, and we don't, quite frankly, don't want you here anymore.
Well, it's a bad marriage, and you're just together for the kids, or together because you got like stocks and bonds or money. Basically, you're stuck with each other.
Yeah.
And you're stuck with each other, and you hate it, and you start to hate each other.
Right.
But really, what it is with Florida State and Clemson, it's not like they want to leave the ACC. They just want more money.
Sure.
If the ACC showed up tomorrow and said, we're going to give you both $100 million a year, guess what? We love the ACC.
But again, what did you agree to a decade ago? You signed on the dotted line.
Twice.
And
two times.
Very clearly saying, guys, you know you're locked in for 20 years. If you sign this, I don't care. We want our own network. We want to make sure we're locked in making, because at the time the revenue was, that's great. Like you're at the top level of college football. I guess you could have foreseen the SEC and the Big Ten getting monster contracts in the years to come, but that didn't seem to be on the horizon to them, I guess. And now that you're looking around saying, well, we want what they have. Well, too bad.
Yeah.
You pigeonholed yourself.
You wanted the safety of a grant of rights. When Maryland left, you all freaked out. You all freaked out. And instead of taking a chill, or like, my kid would say, take a pill, what you ended up doing was signing this gigantic grant of rights deal. You signed twice now, not once, but twice.
Yeah.
Because you want everybody locked in. Then all of a sudden you saw everybody making a ton of dough, and you went, whoa, what the heck have we done?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you hate everything and everybody, and all of a sudden this document you signed, you want to try to get out of it, but you weren't being held at by knife point. You signed it out of fear because you want to keep your conference together. And now you want to blow up your conference.
Exactly. Don't get mad that you locked yourself and others inside of a box and threw away the key. Don't point your fingers to the other people for throwing the key away. You did it yourself. Saying you agreed to this. You agreed you're going to be in here until 2036, and then you're free to explore other options and go elsewhere. By that point in time, who knows what college football is going to look like.
But you know what? They got what they all wanted. Safety. Nobody can go anywhere. You got what you wanted, right?
You're safe. You're making half as much money annually as 34 other Power 5 teams. So essentially half the Power 5.
But you're safe.
But you're safe.
Together.
Yeah.
In poverty.
By the way, that like cousin you have in Notre Dame's also making more than you, but don't bring that up.
Yeah, but you have safety. All right, let's real quick. Jeff Lebby, new head coach of Mississippi State. The spring game was like 200 to 199. It was craziness. And here's Lebby talking after the spring game.
Good to see. That's going to be a huge part of who we are, creating explosive plays. I think that's obvious. But again, we got to continue to get a lot better, and we got to continue to get better in a lot of different areas. But was proud of our guys for being able to make some competitive plays, and then there was a couple others I thought we could have made that we got to make.
Yeah, spring game was fun in Starkville, man.
So they use one of those weird scoring things where the offense and defense score points based on things that they do. So the score's high because of that.
Right.
But I feel like this was almost kind of like sending a message to everyone. I remember
absolutely it was.
I remember when Jeff Collins became the head coach at Georgia Tech after running the triple option for a decade with Paul Johnson. People were sick of it. They wanted to become a modern type of offense. In their spring game, they threw to a tight end on the first play because they hadn't had a tight end on the roster in like 8 years as a ceremonial way of saying, hey, we're in the 21st century now. I think this was Jeff Lebby's way of saying, hey, we're getting back to what you wanted on offense here at Mississippi State, because the Arnett experiment and what's his name from Appalachian State went horribly wrong a season ago.
Yeah, and I agree with you that the reason Lebby was hired was because what happened with Arnett last year. Mm-hmm. And the goofiness that went on the offensive side of the ball. And you wanted, look, Mike Leach made you very successful in his short time there.
Sure.
You see, okay, we just can't be like everybody else. We got to try something different. We're going to bring in an offensive guru again in Lebby. Blake Shapen comes in from Baylor to quarterback this thing. And yes, we want to get back to what we had a couple years ago because everybody liked that.
Right.
We didn't like last year. All right. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We'll get back in here, the NFL draft. You might have heard of it. It's coming up. Let's yap some draft, some quarterbacks in the draft. That's next here on the Halftime Show on the Game. Football in the 1 o'clock hour here on the halftime show, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. One other quick college football note that we'll pop off to the NFL real quick. John Emery Jr. was a former top 15 recruit at LSU, number 11 overall in 2019. Just never happened for him at LSU.
Right.
For a variety of reasons. Only played in 7 games last year at 23 carries. He was
a 4 or 5 star kid coming out of high school?
5-star kid, yeah. He was 11th overall recruit in ESPN's rankings.
He was a hot commodity.
He was not recruited by Brian Kelly.
That's right.
Let's be fair to this. So he's moving on. He's in the transfer portal now. He'll be a grad student. So John Emery Jr., a guy at one time, a ton of potential, now is going to try to hook up somewhere where maybe he can finish up his college career, getting some actual playing time, leaving LSU. All right, now to the NFL real quick. This is interesting. ESPN.com, Seth Walden is part of the ESPN Analytics staff. And they did some of the draft stuff by probabilities, computers, simulators, percentage of chances.
Okay.
And they have an interesting one for wide receiver we'll get to in a minute. Quarterback, according to the simulator, who's most likely to be the number 2 pick? Jaden Daniels still 49%.
Okay.
Drake May is at 21%, J.J. McCarthy 15%. It still feels like Jaden Daniels will be the number 2 pick. Does he want to play for Washington?
It's $1 million question.
I mean,
literally.
Now I'll say this. If I'm Washington and I like Daniels, I'm taking him.
Yeah. Make him say no.
That's it. I'm taking you. That's life. If you're the guy we think can get us out of this funk that we've been in for, it feels like a millennium, we're going to take you and suck it up.
Right.
So, and the people that go, yeah, but this draft thing isn't fair. People should be free to sign wherever they want, like if you had a real job. It doesn't work that way.
No.
Because everybody want to sign for 5 teams, basically. Maybe 10.
Pretty much.
Who's signing with, let me throw one out here. Who's signing with Washington?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, now you got new ownership, and it feels like you're now going to, get this thing in the right direction. Well, but that thing has been a disaster. Who's going to sign with the Carolina Panthers?
Nobody.
If they have a choice to go somewhere else.
And there's so few of these guys that their talent is elite enough where they have the potential to say, no, I don't want to go to that team. I want to go to this one instead. Obviously, we saw it with Eli Manning, saw it with John Elway back in the day. Sorry to conjure up any bad memories there. But a lot of these guys are just going to be thankful to be drafted, and they don't care where they go, even if it is a bad organization like the Panthers.
Yes. Because the bad teams have the highest picks.
That's right.
That's the way this thing works.
That's how they try and keep balance in the NFL. It doesn't work to a T, but that's the idea.
Like the NFL's model is to make everybody 9-8 or 8-9.
Sure.
That's the NFL model. And the draft is the ultimate equalizer.
Sure.
And the hard salary cap.
Now, again, if you don't have the people in your building that can make the right kind of decisions and utilize that talent in the best way, then you're not going to be successful. Looking at you, Carolina.
Exactly.
I really hope Leggett doesn't go there. Personally,
Leggett hopes Leggett doesn't go there.
I know he had the comment the other day that, hey, they said that if I'm there, they're going to take me, but I really want somebody to take him at the end of the first round. So
I hope Kansas City takes him at 32.
I do too. That'd be fantastic. And again, we've had him on here. He's been in the program for a long time. Like, you can't help but love the guy. Like, we want to see him go to somewhere where he can really succeed. And I hope that's anywhere but Carolina.
Well, you said succeed. You can't put succeed and Carolina in the same sentence.
Exactly.
All right, what spot, according to the analytics and computers and the formula, will J.J. McCarthy, the quarterback from Michigan, his draft range? Now, again, he's all over the board. Small percentage chance he could go number 2. I wouldn't take him number 2. A 4% chance he could be selected in every spot between 3 and 9.
Okay.
Most likely landing spot, according to the computer, for J.J. McCarthy is draft selection number 6. 31% chance he'll land in the 6 hole.
And who would that be to?
Oh, geez, on top of my head. Oh, gosh, the draft order, I'm blanking. Grab the draft order real quick.
Yeah, working on it. 1 second.
I'm blanking on the draft order right now. I think that the Giants aren't 6, are they? I'm guessing off the top of my head. Are the Giants 6?
I think I'd be able to find one on the front page of ESPN. Hold on.
All right, so while you're going there, Michael Penix and Bo Nix. Could they fall to the Raiders and the Rams in the second round? That's picks number 44 and 51. The percentage of that, about 33% chance that those guys could fall.
6 is the Giants.
It's who?
Giants.
Okay.
Yep.
So 6 is the Giants. So then that's an interesting question. So Penix and Nick seem like there's a 33% chance that they're going to land where the Raiders and Rams are choosing, and then are they going to take those guys in the second round? A lot of people think the Rams in the third round could take Spencer Rattler.
Yes.
All right, so let's say the Giants are on the clock at 6, and let's say J.J. McCarthy's still available. And let's push away what I think of J.J. McCarthy for a minute.
Okay.
If you're the Giants and you really like him, do you pull the trigger? I mean, look, there's one more year of money on Daniel Jones' deal, and that's done. But Jones is hurt, like he's been for a lot of his career.
Right.
He had one solid season, and the Giants went gaga and paid him like a bunch of goofs.
Well, and he was the quintessential guy coming out of college, like, ooh, he's I forget how tall he is, but he was the perfect height and like all the intangibles of what you want a quarterback to be. He can make all the throws, but look at his college career, and it wasn't anything crazy.
And in the NFL, he's been hurt and ineffective. And like I said, his first year under Brian Dable, he was solid.
Yeah.
And then the Giants, and again, I don't know what their blood alcohol level was when they decided to give Jones a real contract. I'd have franchised him and say, do it for a second year in a row, then we'll talk about money.
Sure.
But they didn't. And last year, once again, he went back to being Daniel Jones again, and he got hurt. So are you done with Daniel Jones? You have 1 year left on the deal that's really going to bite you. Do you draft J.J. McCarthy to be your next guy, have him play behind Daniel Jones for a year? Or do you say this? We need a lot of stuff. We need things. Do you take Dallas Turner, the linebacker? Do you go get one of these wide receivers? Because you need a wide receiver really bad.
Well, my concern is that if you draft J.J. McCarthy, and again, we think he can pan out to be a good pro, but we don't know that for certain, which I guess you can say that about all guys. But if you spend a first-round pick on him, obviously that's a lot of money tied up in another high draft pick playing the quarterback spot. If he ends up burning out as well, then you've tied up all this money and you're still not addressing these other areas of need on your team, as opposed to maybe getting somebody in the second or third round that's maybe, I don't want to say not a day one starter, but somebody that could come in, develop a little bit, and it's say, again, if Jones is off the rails halfway through the season, you can say, all right, we're going to go ahead and turn to this guy instead.
I'll say this. Now I'm going to be the GM of the Giants. Remember, I took myself out of this. Now I'll put myself back in it. I'm the GM of the Giants. I'm making some really good money.
Yeah.
I'm doing all right now. I just pulled up in my Audi at work. Get out. I like an Audi. Sorry, I had one. Back before I had kids, I had disposable income. I had an Audi. Now I ride a bike. So I'm showing up. I go in. I walk into the war room. I'm not drafting J.J. McCarthy number 6. That's too high. That's too high for such an unknown for me. Because again, you watch McCarthy. You read all the scouting reports. There's so much unknown of J.J. McCarthy. I can't draft a guy with that much unknown at 6. If I'm the Giants, I'm doing one of two things. I'm staying there and I'm taking the wide receiver. Because the wide receiver most likely will be the highest rated guy on your board at that time.
Sure.
Whether it's Neighbors, Odunze, whoever. Because Harrison's gone.
Maybe be gone.
I'm taking one of those two. Or if I get a really good offer from somebody who does love J.J. McCarthy, I will trade down, get some draft capital, and take one of those second level of wide receivers if they're the highest guy on my board at the time. Or, you know what I've done, Tyler? I've added to my draft bank. It's a deep wide receiver draft.
Right.
And now I've got more bites at the apple. Either I'm taking a receiver or I'm trading down. I'm not at 6 taking a guy that I really don't know enough about in J.J. McCarthy.
I think that's fair.
That's me. All right, real quick, Xavier Legette. Let's get to this. I'm going to look at the players who have been sniffing around the first round, right?
Yep.
Xavier Legette's one of them. They put together this group. Xavier Legette has a 19% chance to go in the first round, which is the highest of all of the fringe first rounders. So Legette, look, that's not a high percentage, but don't be surprised if you hear Legette's name between 28 and 32. Is that what we're saying?
Right.
All right, so that's kind of what the computers say with their predictors. We'll get back in here. We're going to get the Firehouse subtext, the hour, 803-404-6100. Football in the 1 o'clock hour. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, till 3 on the game. All right, don't forget real quick, we got baseball Friday, Saturday, Sunday here on the Game in Columbia and also Myrtle Beach. 6:45 pregame. South Carolina, Kentucky, big series in the SEC. Saturday, 3:45 pre. Coverage starts at 1:45 on Sunday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Columbia and Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and Kentucky. All right, our Firehouse subtext the hour on our text line at 803-404-6100. What do you get?
John weighs in and says, if you ever get food poisoning, looking at a fresh date will make you sick to your stomach, even if it's close to being outdated. And I 100% agree with that.
A fresh date?
Like the freshness date, used by this date, good by this date.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
even if you're like the day of, you're like, I don't know about that. But like, my mom is the complete opposite. She won't look at like a fresh date. I'd be like, Mom, that bread's 3 days old. Or like that lunch meat expired 3 days ago. Tasted fine. I'm not worried about it. I'm the complete opposite.
See, I'll look at a freshness date. I never used to. My girlfriend has wore me down on freshness dates. When I was younger, I didn't care about that stuff. I just whatever. Now that I've gotten older, she's almost like guilted me into freshness dates now to where I look at all of it, all of them. And so I was always a smell guy.
Okay.
Like lunch meat.
Well, it smells good.
After
it's
a couple
okay.
days, I get really weirded out by lunch meat.
But some of it smells just in general.
That's what you always got to.
Preservatives and chemicals just to keep it fresh longer. Like a fresh one smells wonky sometimes.
But there's a certain stank,
There
should I say stank?
Yeah,
to lunch meat when it's starting to go bad.
there is.
And once I get a little whiff of that, gone.
Yeah.
I ain't playing around. I'm not going to do this. Oh, no, gone.
So
done.
So I can tell you this: my mindness to freshness states actually doesn't come from the food poisoning I got when I was 11, 12 years old, or however old I was. It actually came. I saw some movie when I was a kid. I don't even remember what the movie was, but I remember one scene where this person got like some kind of parasite because they were in the hospital and they were really sick, and they go back to their house and they found like expired lunch meat in their fridge, and like that's what it was from in this movie. And since then, I've been so hyper aware of freshness dates that like scarred me as a child. That's what it was from.
Nice. I can see that. Who wants a parasite, man?
I don't know. And I don't remember what the movie was, what it was about. I just remember that one specific scene about a parasite from lunch meat, and I was like, I'm not taking that chance.
I'm done. Do you ever eaten a piece of bread, and then after you've taken a few bites, you see at the heel, you miss the mold?
Yeah.
And that's bad. I've done that.
If it's close to the date, I will thoroughly examine it front and back. Like, all right, make sure we got nothing going on here.
Again, the young Terry Ford, that was me, early 20s. Saturday night, 3 a.m, you got to eat something, make it a sandwich, get halfway through and look at the crust and go.
You realize the bread hasn't been closed in the past 3 days.
Oh, God. That shouldn't be green.
I don't care.
I tell you what, man, that is one of those feelings you go,
Yeah. But, and again, so you never had food poisoning?
No, thank God.
I have. It is not fun.
No, I don't think it would be.
Because your whole body is mad at you at that point in time.
And it takes it out on you.
It does take it out on you.
I've heard stories of food poisoning.
So I got it from eating pizza. I won't say the name of the place, but I legitimately went several years without eating pizza after this incident.
See, I would be the same. And again, pizza's my favorite food.
Yeah.
But if I got food poisoning from pizza, there'd be a period of time that I would have to.
You have to readjust.
Yeah, I'd have to take a break.
I'm good now. But for a while, and my dad, because I was 12. I'm a little kid, probably weighed about 70 pounds. So it really hit me. My dad got a little sick because we ate the same thing. And he's like, yeah, I was feeling a little funny too, but it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Sounds like it, but jeez.
So not a fun time.
That would be like the worst thing for me because I love pizza so much.
You want me to add on to it?
Sure.
So this was on a Saturday, and I got sick that night, went to the hospital, spent basically all night in the hospital. They finally let us go at like 4 a.m, and we're driving home, run into a deer on the way home.
Oh, even better.
Totaled my dad's truck.
Well, it was your fault
Yeah, it was.
because you were sick.
Totally.
If you wouldn't have got sick, you wouldn't have been out to hit the deer.
Between the truck being totaled and the hospital bill, that was an expensive pizza.
Yes, you expensive kid that night.
That was not a fun day.
The sickest I ever got was I loved Pringles when I was a kid.
Okay.
I ate like 3 cans of Pringles.
Sure. As we all do. Now you can't even look at them, right?
No, I won't eat them. I haven't eaten a Pringle since I was 10. After that incident, after that experience with Pringles,
That's fair.
no more Pringles.
I did the same thing with honey buns. I ate a whole box like in one sitting and Now I can't even take the smell of them now.
So when Dave walks around with his honey buns, you turn green?
I can't. I couldn't be near him eating one. I'll say that much.
We appreciate the text at 803-404-6100, our Firehouse subtext of the hour. By the way, Jay Phillips will love this. I'm looking back at this formula, the computer analytics stuff for the draft.
Yep.
According to this, the Broncos, there's a percentage of a chance they would take Bo Nix at 12.
Interesting.
That would be a bad pick.
Well, let's see. What are their options right now? Zach Wilson.
They got Zach Wilson now.
Yeah. I'm sure Jay feels great about that.
They don't need no stinking quarterback. You got Zach Wilson.
You know, imagine hating Zach Wilson so much you just send him to the top of a mountain. Let's get him as far away from us as we can.
How about getting a 6th-round pick for the 2nd pick overall in the draft?
Which, by the way, did you see that Denver's new uniforms look like Texas San Antonio?
I did not see this.
They
We'll have
did.
to check it out. Halftime show. halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. What's trending at 2? Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions, your official NIL partner with Garnet Trust. You buy some merch at Gamecock Traditions, it'll go toward the Garnet Trust, which goes toward bringing in athletes to play at South Carolina. So appreciate the folks at Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions for the love there. All right, Caitlin Clark getting paid, not by the WNBA, but getting paid. She'll continue her association with Nike by signing a $28 million contract that will span 8 years, roughly about $3.5 million per season. It includes a signature shoe. Also, Clark received offers of over $16 million for 4 years from Under Armour, $6 million for 4 years from Adidas. And, of course, Nike steps up with a lot more, almost double what Under Armour threw out there.
I believe her jersey is also already sold out with the Fever.
I mean, this is just smart business. You ride this wave.
For sure.
And if you're the WNBA, you hope Caitlin Clark plays the way she did in college, and you can keep her relevant, and you can make a ton of money, hopefully, just with the idea that she is an athlete that the casual fan actually knows and in somewhat is interested in what she does.
Well, and that's the thing about this is if the WNBA ever wants, not that they're ever going to surpass the NBA or even men's college basketball, if they ever want to gain relevance, this is your opportunity. You have to strike while the iron is hot. And again, they're putting a lot of the Fever games on television as much as they can where people can see them. And again, they're playing the first game here in like 3 weeks. It's going to be a ratings bonanza. It's maybe the highest rated WNBA game of all time, even better than their finals in years past. But you got to milk this for all that it's worth.
Yeah, and look, I understand some of the other WNBA players who are going, seriously? I've actually had a good career, or I'm actually an all-star, or I've been an MVP.
It makes them mad, and I get it.
But you have to understand, this isn't about who's better as a player. This is about who's marketable.
Right.
This is about marketing and business. And Caitlin Clark right now, look, a lot of people don't like it, but in the world of the casual sports fan, Caitlin Clark is the face of women's basketball.
1,000%.
And that look, in the short term, I get all the frustration, anger, annoyance, especially from women basketball players who have had excellent professional careers. But like Tiger Woods did for the other golfers, if this brings you more money.
And that's the thing, because people are making a lot out of her contract and the way that breaks down over the course of the 4-year deal, and I don't think she's making more than $80,000 over the next 4 years or anything like that. And people are saying, well, this isn't right. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. It's just where business is as of right now. But like I said, if you want that opportunity for WNBA players consistently to break into the six figures, here's your chance. You have to make sure that the Caitlin Clark wave continues to ride and it encapsulates the entire game. And yes, I get it. Diana Taurasi is mad about Caitlin Clark coming in, but again, she's going to help elevate the entire game of women's basketball to let everybody hopefully make more money in the long run.
You want everybody to eat, and Caitlin Clark can help you eat. And that's just the reality of this. And people who look at her contract and go, wow, that's it? Look, this is the way professional sports is. It's purely capitalistic. There's nothing about this that's, well, everybody should get paid the same. That's not the way this works.
Sure.
The NBA generates ridiculous amounts of revenue in the billions. Major League Baseball does. The NFL does. The NHL doesn't generate what those three do, but the NHL generates a lot of revenue. Women's basketball does not generate anywhere near the revenue that those other sports do.
And where do these sports get a bulk of their money from? Television deals.
Television. And they have viewers. You can go hockey. Now, understand, hockey has viewers.
Yes, it's more niche than some of those others, but it still brings in millions of viewers. We're in the Stanley Cup playoffs right now.
Right.
Millions of people watching every night.
And, you know, the WNBA, they want to get over 1 million viewers consistently for something. And I'm not knocking anybody. I'm being honest, and it's just the truth, and the numbers back it all up. And Caitlin Clark is your hope to get women's basketball more ratings, which could lead to more revenue and a better TV deal and things of that nature.
Right.
That's what this is about. This isn't about what's fair, what's not. This isn't like an equal wage law or anything like that. Or, there is no across-the-board salary cap in sports.
Yep.
You generate more revenue. Your sport pays more money to the players because they generate the revenue by what they do on the field, the court, the diamond, the rink, the pitch, whatever. I mean, to be honest, the U.S. women's soccer team, they should make more dough than the men.
Sure.
But,
Did you ever play on like a little league team or a basketball team or a baseball team where there was one player that was head and shoulders better than everybody else, and maybe got some special treatment or got away with doing some things that nobody else on the team would get away with? When you ask coach, you're like, well, he's special and you're not.
Well, Jimmy Johnson had the great line, and I forget the running back. He went to Pitt, and he was a backup running back with Dallas, and he fell asleep in a meeting, and they cut him.
Yep.
And they said to Jimmy Johnson, what if Emmitt Smith fell asleep in the meeting? I'd give him a pillow.
It's the same thing about Troy Aikman. I'd say, I'd march back up there. Wake up, Troy.
It's just because, again, some people are different and special.
Sure.
And that can drive you crazy and make you mad. But sometimes circumstances all come together, right? Like a perfect storm. And that person's going to have a different set of rules than everybody else. And that's just life. Right now, Caitlin Clark's going to have a different set of rules. Now, if she goes to the WNBA and goes, everything changes.
Yeah.
Because if she stinks or if she's just okay, eventually all this will stop.
Yeah.
So, think about the pressure Caitlin Clark has on her right now.
And here's the thing. Even if she does end up stinking, there's going to be a period of intrigue where up to the point where the vast majority of people realize, oh, she's not that good at this level, I'm going to tune out. You still have to capitalize on that.
On that window.
5 to 6 weeks of people being interested.
Take it. Run with it.
Because in watching Caitlin Clark and saying, okay, well, maybe she's not as great as we thought she was going to be, but, man, did you see Aaliyah Boston? Did you see one of these other players, Asia Wilson, somebody else that people may not be as familiar with that we're obviously familiar with here, but like, okay, well, I tuned in for Caitlin Clark, but now I found this player that I'm really interested in. That's how you get people hooked. So again, even if it's a small window, the people are interested. It might be enough to hook some people.
And if I'm Caitlin Clark, I'm taking every endorsement deal you offer me.
Oh, for sure.
If
I'm the league, I'm telling her to take get on everyone's TV, be in their face, be on State Farm, Nike, I don't know, whatever you can.
Pick something. Doesn't matter. Hims for your hair loss. I don't have hair loss.
Sure.
Who cares?
Why not?
Yes, you do have hair loss. Use Hims. They can have hers. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
I think that is a thing.
Do they have hers?
I don't think it's hair loss. I think it's something else.
Maybe we shouldn't go there.
Probably not.
All right, let's spin back around. And look, and I understand, like, the high-level women in WNBA who aren't happy about this Caitlin Clark love. But they would take the same deal.
Sure.
Everyone would do this because, again, you take advantage of your opportunities when they're sitting there in front of you. Caitlin Clark, go get them. Get all what you can get right now. Hopefully you have a phenomenal WNBA career and you help the women's game and all this other stuff and usher in a new era. Hopefully it works for you. But just in case it doesn't, guess what? You banked a lot of dough.
For sure. And I think that also creates intrigue as well that, like, all right, somebody like Diana Taurasi, who's been very outspoken about Caitlin Clark and, she's going to have to prove it at this level. Like, I'm interested to see that game, to see what she does to try and negate her abilities and seeing this matchup of old versus new and how it comes together. So, like, there's a lot of storylines baked into this with her going to the WNBA.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is one instance where, as I've said, that the WNBA has the weirdest schedule compared to women's college basketball, where you go from the national championship to the draft the next week to playing your first games on a month later. That's actually kind of perfect for them in this instance, because if the WNBA followed every other basketball calendar and you're not playing games until October, November, a lot of people would forget. But she's still relevant enough right now, and there's not a whole lot of other things going on in the sports world from a sense of the month of May. They're like, hey, Caitlin Clark's playing the first game on Tuesday night. Let me check that out, as opposed to, well, it's either that or watch this football game or watch this other basketball game from the NBA or college basketball. Like, you actually are taking advantage of the calendar in the right way this time around.
Yes, and you're running the momentum. That's kind of what this whole thing is about.
Sure.
So, all right. Also, Aaron Boone had quite a day yesterday.
Oh, goodness.
We talked about it a little bit on this show, and then when I was hanging out with Jay a little bit yesterday as well. And look, I said this. Was Aaron Boone unfairly run? Yes. He was unfairly ejected from the game. But here's the one thing about Aaron Boone. It's like anything in life. If I'm constantly trying to get over, like when I was a teenager on my parents.
Yeah.
And they're putting me in trouble for constantly trying to weasel and get over because I'm a teenager. And let's say one time it looks like I was trying to weasel and get over, but I wasn't. They gonna believe me?
Oh, you've lost the benefit of the doubt.
Aaron Boone is a huge pain in the butt to umpires. Dude gets ejected. He's constantly beefing and barking from the dugout all the time, right?
Did you hear Preston's stat this morning when they were talking about this?
No.
So I think Aaron Boone's been ejected in like 35, 36 games. He's coached not quite 1,000 games yet in his career. Statistically speaking, he has a higher ejection to games coached percentage than Bobby Cox did over his entire career. Now, again, he's not coached the same amount of games as Bobby Cox, and it's a different world of baseball now with who gets ejected and who doesn't and how often that happens. But he has a higher ejection percentage than the most ejected manager of all time. That says something. And like we talked about this yesterday, as you mentioned, and I had one idea and thought on this at that point in time, like how ridiculous of the umpire to throw him out, even though he wasn't the one that said it. But you guys both bring up a good point. You lose the benefit of the doubt that, yes, was the umpire wrong for throwing him out for what the guy behind the dugout said? Yes. But if he hadn't had so many problems up to this point, it probably wouldn't have been as quick of a trigger.
Let me ask you this. I'll make it local.
Sure.
If that's Brian Snicker, is he thrown out?
Probably not.
Because he's not the number one most hated public enemy of umpires like Aaron Boone.
Pretty much.
He's just not. And that's part of this is Boone. Umpires hate Boone so much. He gets no benefit of the doubt.
They are waiting. They are looking for that like one little thing. And this was 5 pitches into the game yesterday. It's not like we were 8 innings in.
Right. And here's the other part of it, too, with this whole spiel with Boone, is it's human nature. If someone is constantly complaining about you all the time, how objective are you about them?
Probably not a lot.
That's another part of this. Now, look, Boone was wrongfully run.
Sure.
A fan was barking. Boone got thrown out for it. That's wrong. Should they have gone to the monitor to find out if Boone was telling the truth? Because, again, I think ejecting a manager is kind of a big deal.
Sure.
Even though it was 162 of these games. Yes, they should have gone to make sure that they were right. There's no doubt about it. But guess what? If you weren't a pain in the butt to the umpires, maybe you wouldn't have been thrown out in the first place because they have such a quick trigger on you because they can't stand you.
And Preston used the analogy because, of course, he's a teacher that there's always that kid talking in class. And, you get on to him and get on to him and get on to him and say, hey, next time you talk, you're out. And it's the kid next to him that talks, but because he's in the vicinity, you say, get out. Well, it wasn't me. Well, you know what? Next time it's going to be you. So go ahead and get out.
And guess what? In school, I was that guy.
I'm sure you
In
were.
high school, I was a goof. I had fun. I joked around. I pushed all the buttons I could because I thought it was fun watching teachers. Screwing with teachers was fun.
Sure.
And I had a few teachers I really liked. But I also had some teachers I couldn't stand, and I loved to screw with them.
Right.
So, again, if anything happened in the class, there was like 3 of us they would look at.
Oh, yeah.
Whether we did it or not, there was 3 of us they would look at automatically. So to Preston's point, 100% agree with him.
Yeah.
And that's what the umpires did to Aaron Boone. Was it wrong? Yep. Should have been corrected? Yep. But it's totally understandable when you're beefing at umpires all the time. Here's what Hunter Wendelstedt probably did when he went to put his mask back on. Got that pain in the butt out of the way. Now they can just umpire.
Probably.
So, anyway, again, not to give the umpires any, oh, that was okay. That's just, you have to understand the context of some of this that goes on.
Sure.
But again, umpires do at times. It's not about you, ump. No one comes to see you. But Aaron Boone drives him crazy. Halftime show, more. What's trending at 2? Gamecock traditions. We'll get to some Mark Kingston. Hear about Carolina baseball next on the halftime show. Thursday, 6 to 9 a.m., the early game at the Chamber of Commerce Golf Tournament at Fort Jackson. Be hanging out there. Gunner's played a lot of golf lately.
I'm saying, he's how good of a golfer is he? I think it's a better question.
They say he's solid.
Well, how good of a golfer does Gunner say he is? I think it's the better question.
Masters level.
It's like Scotty Scheffler, Bill Gunter, everybody else.
I think if they did match play, Gunner could take him.
I'm sure he could.
Absolutely. Gunner could take him.
Is Gunner one of those guys like, man, if I hadn't hurt my knee senior year?
Yes. Well, yeah, Bill and Preston will be at the Chamber of Commerce tournament 6 to 9 a.m. on Thursday here on the game at Fort Jackson. And by the way, $1,000. We made it to the Lawyer Lisa level.
We've hit the grand four-figure.
Go to 1075thegame.com, register for the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. Just look at the flippy thingy at the top of the website. Click on the one that says Palmetto Citizens Grand Slam giveaway. Fill out the little entry form. If a Gamecock hits a slam, the next weekday we're on the air, we'll be drawing a winner at 7:30. It could be you, but you got to go register at 1075thegame.com.
You know it's going to happen when we least expect it, right?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. It'll be someone like random. Like Ellis will hit a grand slam over the weekend. It'll be something so random, and it'll be a slam that we never expected.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay.
Against like a Friday night starter.
Yes. Something we never thought we'd see happen. So, again, your chance to win a grand from Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. All right, speaking of baseball, 3-game set coming up with Kentucky Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Mark Kingston was hanging out with us yesterday on the postgame show, talking about a variety of things. You know, Austin Breiling showed up from North Florida, was an early get in the portal. You looked at his numbers, really good on base percentage, good batting average, steal bags, looked like a leadoff hitter.
Right.
And then it was like, what happened to that guy? Is he still around? Well, here's Mark Kingston talking about the journey for Breiling to have the good weekend that he had against Arkansas.
Yeah, Austin, just to give you the background on Austin, Austin's a kid we got out of the transfer portal last summer out of North Florida. He had hit 386, had a 500 on base percentage, and we thought this is the prototype leadoff hitter that we really would love to put in front of the Messinas and the Petries and those kind of guys. And he came in here last fall and just really struggled. And when I say really struggled, I mean really struggled. But he had a swing flaw that allowed him to get by at the mid-major level because he has such good hand-eye coordination and the velocity's not what it is here. He was able to get away with it. So it took a long time for our guys, Monty and Joey and Austin together to kind of figure out, all right, how do we get this guy to have a swing that will work at this level? And he worked hard. He got rid of the hitch that he had that was one of the major issues. And he really kind of figured out a swing that could work here. And we have live at bats days, generally every week on Wednesdays after Tuesday night games for pitchers that haven't thrown the innings that they needed to, either on the weekend or on Tuesday. And for the guys that need at bats, your role players that haven't been getting game at bats, you give them real at bats against those pitchers. So the last time we did that, Austin had 7 at bats and he had 6 hits. And it just looked like he was in total control of the strike zone, total control of the at-bats, and he was hitting the ball hard. It wasn't just, hey, some ground ball. He hit a home run, he hit balls in the gap, and it looked like a real hitter. It looked like the guy we recruited out of the transfer portal last summer. And so, I'm not one to be scared to give something a shot. If I think something might work, I'm going to give it a shot, whether it's offensively, defensively, pitching-wise. Not gonna operate in fear and say, well, we haven't used them. Why do we want to start now? If I think something might work, I'm going to give it a shot. And my eyes told me Austin was ready and he could do it. And watching him out there this weekend, I'm very glad that we went in that direction because he had a tremendous weekend.
Yeah, I mean, got on base. He did get picked off a couple times. You got to fix that, but got on base a bunch. And you can envision him, if he can keep going, like that table setter you were hoping he would be when he transferred in from North Florida. I liked the background story, too. Had a kind of a hitch in his swing. He couldn't hit velocity because of that, and he just struggled. and they went to work to fix it. And to the credit of the coaching staff, they got it fixed. And they hope they've got it fixed permanently. And if so, Brindling, if you can have a consistent leadoff guy
Sure.
to set the table, that'd be nice.
And you add him to the list of guys that have stepped up when they've been given opportunities this year. We've talked about Dalton Reeves, what he's been able to do in limited work. That's seen him as a more featured guy. Now, he didn't have the greatest weekend this past weekend against Arkansas, but still, overall, has done a really good job so far this season. Lee Ellis coming in for Will Tippett. We'll get to him in just a moment. He went 500 on the weekend as well, having to step up in an unfortunate situation there. So these guys, when given these opportunities, are able to step up. Now, yes, Brindling, there's not a lot of tape on him at this point in time, which we talk about once you start playing a couple series,
get
guys
a book
get
on you.
a little bit more of a book on you. We'll see how you do there. So, but for the time being, again, a phenomenal weekend for Austin Brindling. 4 of 10, 2 RBIs, and just a great kind of guy to feature in that leadoff spot.
Because right now this lineup, Parker Nolan's done a nice job quietly.
Sure.
396 on base, 282 batting average. Cole Messina's had a nice year. Dylan Brewer, these guys are like, no one's hitting 300 on this team at this point.
Right.
But you got 4 guys in the 290s. Petrie obviously had the weekend to forget, right? But, Petrie's leading the way at 296, slugging like 650, on bases over 450. So Petrie still, his OPS is over 1,000.
Right.
Kennedy Jones has had a nice season. Dylan Brewer got that white-hot start, then has struggled a bit, but still is putting together some good solid numbers. Like we said, Messina, Nolan. It'd be good if the bottom part of the order or some other guys would step up as well. If you can get Brindling to hit at the top, then maybe you have, Nolan and Jones, Petrie, Brewer, Messina. Now all of a sudden you're building something. So we'll see. All right, here's Mark Kingston also. Did the weekend rotation get solidified? That's been a thing this year. Besides Eli Jones, no consistency in the rotation, especially after Eddie Copper got hurt. Here's Coach on the rotation coming out of the Arkansas weekend.
That's a good question. I think all 3 starts gave us a chance to win. Using Roman, and then the combination of Roman and Ty Good on Friday, we gave up 2 runs. And then you look at the Saturday game that we won, we gave up 3 runs with the combination of Eli Jones and Becker. And then SQ gave us probably the best start of anybody on Sunday, where he could kind of watch for 2 days and then use his pitches in the best way possible. He gave us a start that gave us a chance to win. We had the 1 5-run inning late that we gave up, which was the difference in the ball game. So I kind of like how it looked, piggybacking those guys, because they're different type pitchers, and statistically Becker and Good have been much better out of the bullpen than they have as starters, and so it's a good combination to kind of piggyback guys and really have dual starters each day. And I think it worked out well. Again, when you face the best team in the country, arguably, and you have a chance to win all 3 games, I think that's a good step.
So you have Kentucky this weekend, you have Missouri the following weekend, and then you wrap up SEC play with Georgia.
And
correct?
Tennessee.
And Tennessee.
Yep.
Right now, you're sitting with the RPI. You are 13th. You have played Texas A&M, who's number 1 in RPI.
Yep.
You played Arkansas, who's number 2 in RPI. You're playing Kentucky this weekend, who's number 3 in RPI. You've played Clemson, who's number 4 in RPI. You're going to play Tennessee coming up, who's 6th in RPI. You played North Carolina in the midweek, who's 7th in RPI. You have played 6 of the top 7 RPI teams in the country. You just haven't played Florida State, who's 5 in RPI.
Right.
So that's the schedule you play, but that's the SEC. And look, fans here don't care.
Sure.
They look at it this way. Don't care because you're supposed to be one of the best teams in the country.
And Coach Kingston brought up the point that you're right there at 500 when playing against those teams. And again, that is a glass half full way to look at it, but the expectation is you're supposed to be better than that. You're supposed to be over that hump.
This fan base wants you to get to Omaha.
Yes.
And anything else, they don't want to hear about.
Yes.
It's very simple.
Last year, hey, you hosted a regional, made it to a super. That's great. That's going to be your minimum expectation this year.
Right. And then if you got back to the super this year, it'd be this. Why didn't you get to Omaha? Got super last year. Why didn't you get to Omaha? All right, and again, 3-game series starts 6:45 a Friday against the Kentucky Wildcats. It's the greatest day in history of the world. Sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We'll get to that next on the Halftime Show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head on the Game. We talk about the Nest here a lot. And basically, if you need new appliances for your kitchen, you need maybe a new bathtub, new shower, new fixtures, new lighting. If you just want to redo the look and feel of a room or multiple rooms in your home, the Nest is the place you go to. And it's really cool what they do. You call 803-978-2025. You talk to one of their experts. By the way, the combined expertise at the Nest, over 70 years of experience. So you talk to the right person about what you're looking for. You say, okay, here's what I'm looking for. Here's my vision. Here's my goals. And here's my budget. The Nest will put together a plan for you, bring you in, sit down, go over the plan, show you around, and get you set up with what is going to make you very happy in your home. Again, 803-978-2025, The Nest, 1331 Gadsden Street. Over 70 years of experience. Call The Nest, set an appointment, be happy. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Greatest day in the history of the world, brought to you by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And the greatest day in the history of the world is now April 23rd, Tyler. On this day,
right.
Let's start with, in 2020, dude named Joe Burrow was the first pick overall in the NFL draft.
It's worked out pretty good.
This is a very interesting draft. Now, typically, when you have a draft and multiple quarterbacks are taken in the first round, usually it's a 50-50 crapshoot, right?
Sure.
That's the way this thing works. Listen to this draft. Now, we are 4 years into it. Quarterback draft. Burrow taken number 1 by Cincinnati, money pick. Change the franchise. 5th pick overall, Tua Tagovailoa. Once he's gotten healthy, franchise quarterback. The 6th pick overall, a dude named Justin Herbert.
He's finally paired up with a coach that we think is going to get the most out of him.
I mean, he's given us moments where you go, wow.
You see the potential there. He just needs that quarterback whisperer.
Needs that whisper. And he hasn't had that yet.
Though I'd be concerned with what kind of stuff Harbaugh would be whispering to him. But
yeah, you never know what kind of kooky stuff Harbaugh's whispering. be funny.
But he should be better off than he was with Brandon Staley.
Absolutely. Look, Jim Harbaugh, we laugh at Jim Harbaugh because he's a kooky dude. I like Harbaugh.
Did you see his tattoo, by the way?
Yeah. How funny is that?
Sort of like you got to get a little magnifying glass out for it.
Nice job, Jimmy. I said I was going to get the tat.
He didn't lie.
He got it. It's interesting because, again, if you think about it, you watch Harbaugh, Andrew Luck at Stanford.
Yep.
Got the most out of changed Alex Smith's career. Alex Smith was on the road to being a huge bust, and then Harbaugh showed up.
Sure.
Got the most out of Colin Kaepernick. J.J. McCarthy's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. Now, again, do I think McCarthy's on the level of Andrew Luck? Of course not. But McCarthy's going to be a first-round pick.
And I think he's been helped tremendously in this draft process despite the fact that, Jim Harbaugh's now with the Chargers. He's talked up McCarthy a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
He said, here's what I see in him. Here's what his potential is. And again, as kooky as he is, you trust Jim Harbaugh's football knowledge that if this guy says that quarterback is good, all right, we're going to take him because he's good.
Oh, yeah. What position did Jim Harbaugh play?
Also quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. Wearing khakis.
I saw that one episode of Saved by the Bell.
He was a natural. Should have won an Emmy for that. All right, so Herbert gets pick 6. We've seen Tagovailoa, Burrow, and Herbert.
Yep.
I'll move down the list a little bit.
Sure.
And this one surprises me again. This one's incomplete, but in year 1, showed you enough that you think maybe this guy might end up being okay. Jordan Love, taken by the Green Bay Packers.
He exceeded my expectations.
Same here. 26th overall. He's still below average accuracy-wise, but you know what? His touchdown-to-interception ratio was excellent, and he really started to play well second half of the year.
Sure.
So maybe this guy will turn out to be a franchise quarterback. I didn't like the pick. I'll raise my hand. I was like...
A lot of Packers fans didn't like the pick either.
I was like... And then what you were hearing those first few years when he was... But again, here's a guy that benefited for sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. Yep. Not that Aaron Rodgers was being Mr. Miyagi to him or anything. Aaron wasn't going, hi, come sit in my hut.
Sure.
And let's drink... Let's drink... No, I'm going to stop there now. Anyway.
You're going to go sit in this dark house for 3 days.
And we'll hold hands. Yeah, exactly. So... I was going to say something I shouldn't have said, and I stopped myself. Look at my maturity.
Now, does that mean he's going to go out and be what Aaron Rodgers was to Brett Favre immediately? No. But can he still be good? Absolutely. Can he be a solid to good starting quarterback? Sure he can. Is he going to be a Hall of Famer like Rodgers and Favre? Please. We don't know. That's tough. Sure. That's tough. Then, okay, so after that, you go, all right, that was it for the first round. Then you go into the second round, and there's this guy named Jalen Hurts. That gets taken by the Eagles. And everybody was like, what are you doing? You have Carson Wentz, almost won an MVP award before he got hurt, and you're taking Jalen Hurts? It's worked out okay. Jalen Hurts is better than I thought he was going to be, too. Absolutely. You know what, to be fair, though, and this sounds so easy, but Jalen Hurts said, you know what? And it started in Oklahoma. It really started out the year when he became a backup to Tagovailoa is really, from what I've read, this started. He started this process. I want to be a better passer. Yep.
So he started working on his fundamentals and his footwork and things like that. He almost rebuilt himself as a passer.
Sure.
Starting that year at Bama, he went to Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley. Then in Philadelphia, he's been working really hard to refine himself as a passer, and we see it's worked out okay for him.
And he's always had a good arm. I remember his freshman year at Alabama, once he won the starting job, he was throwing bombs, not left and right, but pretty regularly. So we knew that arm strength's always been there. It's just been getting more consistent, more accurate with the skills that he had. And I think he has refined it pretty well. And, you can say a lot of things about the Eagles organization and how Nick Sirianni is running it right now, but Jalen Hurts has proven to be a solid commodity at quarterback.
Top 5 quarterbacks taken in the 2020 draft. None of them right now looks like a bust.
No.
At this point. We'll see moving forward where it goes for Jordan Love. But
And
right
if
now,
Tua can stay healthy.
if Tua can stay healthy, that's a rare quarterback draft.
That is.
Very rare. People look at the 83 draft as the golden quarterback draft with Marino and Kelly and all those guys. This draft, though.
Yeah, and again, we're 4 years out.
Let's see where it goes in 10 years.
We haven't even written, a quarter of the book on these guys' careers yet. So, yeah, it could be something that 10, 15 years from now, we say, wow, that was the gold standard of what a quarterback draft could be.
4 years into it, it's an anomaly.
Sure.
Let's put it that way.
I think we can safely say, again, assuming Burrow stays healthy too, knock on wood, that he's going to consistently be one of those guys at the top of the NFL.
All right, speaking of, Alex Smith was also taken this day in 2005. We just talked about Alex Smith. How about that guy?
Utah Ute.
1990, two Utes. 1993, Dallas Mavericks avoided matching the 1972-73 Sixers as the worst team in NBA history by beating the Timberwolves 103-100 for their 10th win of the season.
Wow.
The Sixers were 9-72, if I remember.
Was that a home game?
Probably.
I wonder how many fans were at that one.
2, maybe 3.
Parents. Spouses.
They don't even show up.
Listen, honey, I've been to all other 81 games.
Sweetheart,
I can't make this one.
I've got some errands to run. Sorry. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's last game as a Laker was today in 1989. He is the most underrated Hall of Fame great player, I think, ever. No one, when we talk about greatest players in the history of the NBA, no one ever brings up Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. No one. Offensively, defensively, the guy, I think people think the sky hook is a fluky thing and they don't want to give him credit for being a high-level basketball player.
Right.
But Kareem could play.
He also helped Uncle Jesse make a bank shot in Full House.
Yes, and also flew a plane, an airplane.
That's right.
You tried dragging Malone and Walton up and down the court, or no, whatever it was. Yeah.
A man of many talents.
Yes, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And we'll end on this. Guess who hit their first career home run on this day? In 1939.
1939?
Only reason I know this is right in front of me. I'm not going to act like I knew this because I didn't. Last guy to hit 400.
Last guy to hit 400.
Ted Williams.
Ah, man.
This day, 1939.
Wow.
Ted Williams' first career home run.
Jeez.
And I'll agree with this, the people, all the what-if crowd. If Ted Williams doesn't leave baseball twice to serve in the military, his career numbers would just be vile.
Sure.
Just vile. Because you look at those numbers now and you go, man.
Yeah.
Then you go, oh, by the way, guess how much time he missed?
Well, what we talk about? You hit 300, you're in the Hall of Fame guaranteed.
Yeah, Ted Williams, man. Whew.
That's unbelievable.
I'm telling you. But you know what? Not the best manager ever. Had no patience. Had no patience for bad players.
Not the best person either.
Not the best father.
Not the best father.
No.
You can read some detailed stories on that.
I watched a documentary about that. It was painful.
Yeah.
Not good. All right, it's a great day in the history of the world. Sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We'll get back in here. Our Firehouse Subtext the Hour on the text line 803-404-6100. Post-game show comes with Jay and a special guest host with Jay and a special producer. Today's a day. Halftime show. Wrap it up next on the game. All right, time to check the old Firehouse subtext of the hour at 803-404-6100. What you got there, Tyler Head?
Yeah, going back to our baseball conversation here from Coach Kingston yesterday, AJ says, I don't think this baseball team has the pieces to be really successful, unfortunately, which is disappointing in year 7 of Kingston.
I guess and look, I think we know the answer to this. The really successful is make it to Omaha.
Sure. Well, especially after you made a super last year, like everyone's like, okay, take that next step.
Right. And, you've made 2 supers since, in your coaching tenure.
Mm-hmm.
And, in a lot of places.
That's great.
Woo!
That'll keep you around another 8 years.
Absolutely.
But when you have a program that a decade ago was winning back-to-back national championships, playing for a third, the bar is really high here.
Yeah, the bar is Omaha. And
when you go through the drought that they've been through.
And you know that when you know that coming in.
Sure.
It's not like you're surprised. And
right.
You know that. And again, I think Coach Kingston is a good head coach. And like I said, in a lot of places, his resume here in South Carolina, they'd be like, okay, we got the baseball thing. That's good. That guy's fine.
Yep.
But here, where there's the expectation of going to Omaha and competing and winning national championships, just going to a super is like, yeah, okay.
And I look at it like this. So, he mentioned yesterday with you guys that, hey, we're not far off from beating the best teams, and you're still at, 8 or 5, right at 500 in conference play. Yeah, 9-9. This past weekend against Arkansas, as far as RPI and projections with Field 64, didn't change. Still in the top 15. You're still projected to host a regional at this point in time. Like, that was kind of your mulligan, I guess.
Right.
You dropped 2 against Kentucky this weekend and dropped to 10 and 11 in conference play, and then you do the same thing against Georgia and Tennessee. You're falling further and further down the rung. Like, you can't – the margin for error is getting thinner and thinner at this point in time. Like,
yeah.
Yes, it's great that you're not getting swept by these teams. You got to start winning series.
That's what I was getting ready to say. Being close is great. Being competitive is fantastic. But at some point, you got to post W's. You got to win these series. Tennessee has been smoking hot lately.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing it offensively. They're doing it on the mound. Kentucky's losing a little bit of steam from where they were.
Now, they did have to they went to Tennessee this past weekend.
Yeah,
so.
in Georgia, Georgia's got some folks.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy.
You're getting them at home this year.
And
so
then you're going to Missouri where weird things happen to everybody.
That might as well be the Outer Banks at this point.
Ever since watching the TV show Ozark,
yeah,
I get why Missouri is like a weird place. And of course, they have drug cartels. No, anyway, but you got to win. You got to start winning some series.
Yeah,
and it's not just going to be the aggregate score was 19-18 or whatever. That stuff only works to a certain point.
Sure.
Eventually, you got to post some W's because again, this fan base doesn't care about aggregate scores.
And again, you're roughly a little past the halfway point in conference play at this point in time. It's like, okay, here's what you've proven yourself to be able to do. Now let's turn it up a notch in the last 4 conference series,
and this
4 or 5
crew,
conference
they've
series.
showed you. They swept Vandy here.
Yeah.
They've shown you what they can be when the pieces are working right. You just got to consistently have the pieces work right. Look, this is not the end of the world.
No.
Ole Miss stumbled and bumbled around till the end of a season a few years ago, and all of a sudden they're doing the dog pile in Omaha.
Yeah.
So these things. Who the hell are you? What are you doing here?
I was told to be here.
He's a guest of the Tyler Head Sports Experience.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm thinking that Rich Hall guy from like 30 years ago.
We're sitting here talking, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, it's like some guy just stumbled into the room.
Well, so the funny part is, if you're watching on the live stream, you can't see Jay Phillips.
No.
So this disembodied voice just comes out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
There he is.
There he is. Look at that guy.
There he is.
Look at that guy. So it was good to put somebody in that camera picture with hair. Thank you.
Hey, whatever I can
Appreciate that.
I'm here
How
to
you
help.
doing, bub?
I'm fine. Yeah, I agree with you guys. And I wonder if 7-5 the rest of the way is enough to satisfy this fan base. Is that
Can I ask you, 'cause
more
you are-
importantly, is that enough to host in the
define satisfy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you this. 'cause
hosting
again,
in the first round is going to be satisfying, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's enough. I don't know.
I was going to say to you, you grew up as part of this fan base. So this fan base wants to go to Omaha.
Yeah.
The Supers last year was great. It was fun.
Yeah.
But I'll repeat, this fan base wants to go to Omaha. So if they host this year, I'm going to ask you, thinking like a Gamecock fan. You host. You don't make it to Supers, but you host.
I mean,
You have to get back to Supers to make everybody okay?
Hosting, I think, comes with a pretty strong expectation of advancing to at least the Supers.
Okay, so you're basically.
But I don't know if that's a failure. I mean, again, tell me how you lost, who'd you lose to,
Right.
things like that.
I'm saying not you, because you're looking at it more of a different way. I'm saying the average Gamecock fan is getting back to Supers good enough to quell the noise or slow the noise.
I think so. If you expect to get, I mean, be disappointed if you don't make it to Omaha. Everybody's going to be, but like, draw the line between disappointment and anger.
But there's no anger, Jay. Everyone's logical.
There's a lot of good teams out there. But like you said, if maybe this team doesn't catch fire for another couple of weeks. Who knows?
Again, we've seen some kooky stuff, right?
Yeah, maybe this rotation finally gets it going. We'll see.
You got a special guest going to hang out with
Michael Gillespie going to hang out for a bit?
I was going to tell you. I wasn't going to.
Oh, sorry.
Well, you're the guy at the surprise party,
I don't
aren't
have
you?
a special guest at all, Ter.